Juan, before we get started, go ahead and click the invitation I just sent you to be a co host, and we'll get started in just a minute. So, Juan, it looks like you're a speaker, but there's another invitation that I sent you that makes you a co host.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me. I'm trying this from my laptop for the first time. I don't know if I can do it from here.
I think it was sent to your DMs.
Okay, there we go.
Oh,
We are in.
there you go. Now you're showing up as a co host. Give me a quick second. I'm going to just put this link out so people can join us.
I'll do the same.
Awesome. So, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Doing great. It's been a full day. Definitely been a full day. But I'm feeling pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I uploaded several videos to my YouTube channel, which I'd never done before. So now there is a whole playlist of these X spaces. The last space that we did is now on there. And if anyone wants to listen to the archives, it is now up on 12 String Cara on YouTube.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I love the thumbnails that you put in there. Looks
Yeah,
pretty
I
nice.
had to save that meditation one for you when I saw that. I had
It's
to save that for you.
100% appropriate. Yeah, it
All
fits.
of
It's the
all
last
of the
fully.
oh sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it fits the last conversation fully. So it's perfect.
All of those thumbnails are stolen and they all know it.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought it was
Yeah.
maybe yeah, I thought it was maybe some AI art, but yeah, well done. Well done.
Mhm. I went around stealing art and then I just wrote messages saying, "I stole your art."
It's a good thing you put them up like that too, because I think I ran my spaces. The first one I ever did was a little over a month ago, and I didn't know this, but yeah, they get deleted after 30 days. So I never got to record the first one that I ran.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's good that you put it on there, and it'll be on YouTube forever. So
Yeah, I never even thought of it until I got a request from someone saying that I should do it, and I thought, "Well, that's probably a good idea."
yeah, they get deleted after 30 days, so it's great that you have them on there.
Yeah. The last space that we did was really special, and both of us apparently got some DMs. And I wanted to briefly talk about one DM without doxing the listener. But you and I both heard from this individual who's here with us today, but just to protect his privacy, I'm not going to say his name. But he had said something that I want to repeat so that other people here may be inspired by it. He had asked after listening to our last space, how do you basically, how do you stay positive and how do you have positive self talk without it sounding delusional? I'm paraphrasing basically. How do you believe what you're saying when you want to talk positively about yourself? And my response was something to the effect of, no one's going to love me more than me. No one's going to give a fuck about me more than me. No one's going to fight for me more than me. No one's going to care about me more than me. No one's going to fill in the blank about me or for me more than me. And if you're not willing to fight for yourself, like who will? Right? And I think all of us deserve to fight for ourselves because no one's going to give us the kind of attention or understand us the way that we can. All of us have been through some stuff that only we know, the pain that we've been through, the joys we've been through, the challenges, the triumphs. No one really gets that but us. So we have to be our own cheerleader sometimes. And if we don't believe it, who will? Right. And so I would just like to start by saying that that's a I kind of want to just start that space by bringing that here so that anyone hearing that, if they find that inspirational, that would make the whole show worth it in itself because all of us are worth the time that it takes to recognize ourselves and just give us that extra needed attention.
That's beautiful, Cara, what you did, and yeah, you're right. I got a message from that person too, and kind of apologizing for asking for going a little bit too personal is what he thought, and I made it clear that the reason we're getting on these spaces, the reason we're sharing, the reason we're putting our stories out here the way we are is because we want to relate and connect, and there's things that you and I have both shared that we've gone through, and it's pretty crazy that this little Caspa technology is what's bringing us together, but it's a beautiful thing because there's so many parallels with how we run through our lives and what we go through, and the conversation that we're constantly having is that conversation that we're having with ourselves, right? So
Mhm.
so there's so many things that we can share with each other, and for me, I'm not going to speak for you, but for me, it's not easy getting on these spaces and talking and sharing. Initially, it isn't, right? Because I consider my life, I like to be pretty private, and my life was going good, but this is bigger than myself. There's a tug, there's a pull towards making sure that the story, this my story isn't mine to keep to myself anymore. That's the way I see this, right? And if one person on this space, and one person gets a different shift in their perspective, and they can start having just a different outlook, right? And not just make this about money, not just make this about price action. That's where I see all of this going towards. We titled the space "Beneath the Surface of Caspa," and that's what we want to. Cara and I talked about this. That's what we want to bring to this. We want to bring a different perspective, not have it be about just the tech or the price action. It's not just about the hash rate or the emissions. That's what we're hearing on most of these calls. That's what it's all about on most of the calls, right? But there's an energy behind this movement. And one of the things that I've learned in my life, it's not just about what happened. We create these stories about what happens. And in crypto, those stories, whether they are in Casper or Bitcoin, about scaling, decentralization, they're powerful, and they can also limit us, or they can help us open up. So there's parallels to all this, and that's what we want to do when we come together. We want to have just open, honest dialogue, and we want to look beneath the surface. We want to identify, okay, what's happening out there, where are some opportunities where we can have a different shift in perspective, and take a look at these things from a different set of lens. Find truth in that. Work through the propaganda. Share some personal stories, and not really fight about what's right or wrong. I think that's another thing that's very important to bring to this. But open a space for that curiosity, the truth seeking, the connection. So Caspa for us, I've shared this on other spaces. It's one of my sayings. It's vibrating at the frequency of truth seekers, and that's definitely what we're on here to explore.
And there is a lot of infighting that requires us to be grounded navigating through all of this, especially when we see heated discussions. It does take a moment where we have to really look inward and talk to ourselves and say, okay, is this a space I want to be in? Do I really want to contribute to this fighting, to this heated discussion, to these name calling and whatever there is? There's a lot of that going on right now. And to me it looks like chaos. So I I have to sometimes step out and find a way to feel more organized, which is why I spent today focused on organizing my videos, uploading them, being focused on getting the message out, creating an archive rather than spending my time trolling.
Although that's fun sometimes, right? You can't, it's. I think there's all different ways to show up to this, and you
Yeah.
got to look at yourself. Sometimes you can't take yourself too serious. But
Mhm.
you got to recognize, right? Like today was a day you said that you kind of got away from that, and
Yeah, and there's other days where I'm poking fun, so I get it, get
yeah,
it.
yeah. I don't look at any of that stuff as right or wrong. I really I think I look at it and, hey, this is what's happening, there's some days that I can be with it and laugh and go back and forth, and it's just hilarious some of the stuff that's being put out there, and if you know what this is, right, it should, and ultimately, and you understand what's going on here, some of the stuff should make you laugh, and it
Yeah.
should roll off, and and then you just continue down your journey, right?
Mhm.
That's how I deal with all of it.
I see it like a frequency, like a radio station, and we can turn the knob and be in it or not with it. And sometimes I'm with the music and I wanna hear that frequency and ride that wave, and other times I want a different radio station. So that's
Yeah,
kind of how I see it.
yeah, I think that's a great way to see it, you know? You gotta have some fun though sometimes,
Mhm.
and then sit back and cool off other times, so
Yeah, all the genres.
absolutely. So a question I wanted to ask you, Cara.
Mhm.
So, obviously the angle that we're taking with this and what we talked about in the last space, seeing this as an energy and a spiritual journey. So for you, can you think of the moment when you felt, Caspa wasn't just a technology, but something bigger? Maybe even more spiritual?
Yeah, I I actually prayed about it.
Mm.
There was a time where the night before I escaped my ex-husband, I remember praying and said, "God, I don't really talk to you very much, but I'm gonna talk to you right now because 'cause I'm facing something impossible, and there's a mountain in front of me, and I can't move it, I can't cross it, I can't climb it, I can't go under it, I can't do anything with this mountain. I need I need a miracle." And it seems as if every single day, not only have I gotten over the mountain, but I look behind me and I don't even see the mountain anymore. And for me, Caspa is the paradise I'm walking towards, but also experiencing because I've been moving towards that this whole time. And I kind of see it as a prayer being answered because it was all encompassing. It was several things. It was everything coming together, and it took years for it to happen, but it just seemed as if everything happened as it needed to happen when it did. And Caspa itself has been it's kind of the best analogy I can give is if you're in a desert and you're looking at a mirage, and then you get closer and realize that it's not a mirage, it's real. I see Caspa like that. The more I get closer to it, the more I realize it's not a dream, it's not fiction, it's not false hope, it's not a fake trilemma solver, it's real. It's exactly the sound money and the sovereignty and the hope and the dream and all of that that I hoped it would be. It is the hand pulling me out of the quicksand, so to speak. I just that's how I see it. I see it as a saving grace, really.
That's a your story is so inspiring and beautiful considering everything that you had to go through, and you shared with us on the last call that you saw Bitcoin and never had a problem with it when it was at $7.
Yeah, I loved it. I wanted some.
That is insane, you know? So
Yeah,
it seems like Caspa was just that second chance, right? To
yeah.
move you into that energy that you felt back then, So that's awesome. So beautiful.
It's sort of a second chance, a renewal, a second chance redemption. I don't know what you wanna call it. I don't know if there is a word for it. I've looked at a lot of vocabulary words. I think the best one I can think of is serendipity or serenity. There's just something really surreal and relieving about it, but I don't know if there's a word that can really describe it.
Would you say that that for you evolved over time, or, for example, would you say that engaging with Caspa, being in the community, that it's changed the way you relate to money, energy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what
I
was it
feel like
was it like before? I mean,
in
again,
20
you understood Bitcoin, so just to kind of frame the question, you understood Bitcoin and you
Mhm,
were, your sovereignty was taken away from you. You weren't able to make decisions and invest in that way back when. And now Caspa comes along, you're in this very difficult situation, and Caspa shows up and you see it, right? So I'm just curious, what was it like for you right before all that? And then what is it like, obviously what are some things that have changed as you've held Caspa? Because you've been in it since 2022, right?
mhm. So in 2022, I had a boyfriend. He's not my boyfriend anymore, but I had a boyfriend, and together we discovered Caspa together. So it's hard for me to talk about how I was introduced to Caspa without also including him because he actually was the first one to put Caspa in my wallet so that he wanted to make sure that I had the sovereignty I was looking for. So he got me started, but I got him started mining. So we were sort of helping each other get Caspa. And we both ended up being extremely successful. We both got the same amount of Caspa out of it, and we both got rich off of it. And when it first came out, I saw it as here's my second chance. I'll finally have my sovereignty. And it was all about sovereignty at the beginning. And now it has shifted. Now I don't think it's so much as my sovereignty. I see it as a lifesaver. I see it as something that has literally saved my life and is going to save it going forward. This is my chance to have autonomy and keep it. And that's all I've ever wanted is autonomy.
That's a beautiful shift, right? You got into it 2020, when in 2022? What month?
2022 in November.
November? Okay. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to the shift of initially, and actually for me, it's a little bit different, right? Because for me, I held Bitcoin and I got to experience that with Bitcoin fluctuating the way it did. But then being introduced to Caspa and understanding the story and how Caspa came to be. And Caspa's obviously been in somewhat of a bear market over the past year, but it stopped being about price for me well over a year ago. But
Yeah.
initially it was, that's the way I think most people come to this. It's oh, number go up, and then as you dive in deeper, it's just there's just a completely different way to exist. And when you have a good amount, right, that and you have that sovereignty initially, that absolutely has you vibrate in a completely different energy to be able to take in the next layers and the next levels of this. You know,
Mhm.
yeah, I
In
can.
August in August of 2023, we saw the jump in Caspa's price where it went to 5 cents when it had been stuck around May around 2 cents. In August, it jumped to 5 cents, and I remember my heart palpitating out of my chest. I couldn't believe I was watching Caspa grow. Now, I've been in Caspa since it was 0.004 cents. So to see it go to 2 cents, I was happy, but seeing it go to 5 cents, I remember going,
What?
"Whoa." And my eyes were popping out of my face. I couldn't stop looking at the computer, and I was glued to it watching the number go up, 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 up. And there was a moment where it kept going up, and I found myself constantly checking every few seconds, watching it go up again. And I had to check in with my feelings, and I said, "You know what? I love that it's going up, but I'm not gonna let this become my ring from Lord of the Rings. I'm not gonna let this be my little precious that takes all of my energy where I need to know the price. I'm just gonna trust that this is just how I'm gonna feel when I think of Caspa, because this is gonna continue forever."
Mm. It's pretty awesome and fun to feel that though, right? Where
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't experienced anything like that holding Caspa yet because I've only held it since May of 2024. But I can relate to that. I can go back to moments in my life. I shared early in the call that we did the other day. that one of my first sales jobs was selling knives, and that was the first time I experienced bringing value and being rewarded in commissions, right? And then in building businesses, I got to experience those. That's what I related to when you shared it going from a certain price and then you see it explode. And it's such a beautiful thing that within Caspa that's a possibility. And then once you understand what this is doing for the world and it just being a $2 billion market cap protocol that isn't listed on major exchanges that a lot of people just don't know about yet.
Mhm.
Those moments are going to come. They're going to come. And it's going to be exciting, right? When they do. But yeah, having the grounding, right? Understanding that, okay, it's exciting that it's happening, but you have a choice to make there. Right? You can make it all about, oh, I got all this money, or you can really see it as the gift that it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So spiritually, what does it mean to you to build a financial system that's not just efficient, but it resonates with universal truth?
Yeah, this is, oh my god, it means everything. It absolutely means everything. I've shared that I had a lot of success in building businesses and making fiat, but the way I had to go about doing that, there were so many parts of me that I wouldn't say I necessarily sold out on myself, but I had to numb myself to move through that world and create and build. More so earlier on in my life, I shared I was in sales and pretty successful. I was always a top 1-2% producer, but it wasn't very aligned with how I wanted to operate in the world. I was doing it literally because I needed to make money and to get out of my situation, right? I did share that I was fortunate to have a beautiful foster family and get all this coaching from Lucy in my early 20s, but it was still, I didn't understand the debasing of money and what was happening and why I have to go out and continue to earn all this money. And I was really good at doing it, but it's draining. It's draining to build that way, right? And fast forward, moving it along to building businesses, it took a toll on me physically, mentally, and I still experienced success. But what I noticed over time is even though there were waves, there were ups and downs of me making that money. And fortunately, like one of the things, Cara, I personally never got a credit card until I was in my mid 30s.
Really?
Yeah. And like the only reason I think I didn't do that was because I was really good at making it. So I never ever really spent more than I made. That was just a foundational thing. I didn't get into any debt early in my life. And I remember seeing that from all my friends and not really understanding it. I'm like, well, why would you get a credit card, right? But I didn't really get when I was younger and building earlier on that I was a top performer. I was making really good money. I
Wait,
just
quick question. Did
Yeah.
you learn that from Lucy or from your time in Panama?
Lucy wasn't very my foster family, they ran businesses, but they weren't very good at saving it and doing that great with it. They were amazing providers, amazing people, but no, 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 it wasn't Lucy. It was I actually dated somebody and who was a who was a private banker who who taught me more about the financial system and the benefits of what credit can do and how you can borrow and all that. And that's when I started. I got my first credit card when I was 35, 36.
Wow.
Yeah. And then well, here's what it did do. It helped me understand that, okay, in order to build a business, you can, especially if you're good at producing, you can take loans out, you can again borrow from the future to pay for things today. And that did shift me into a completely different energy, right? So all of a sudden I took on some debt in order to take more opportunity. So that created a shift, right? So I've been operating from okay, I only spend what I make, but there's a limit to that in that system. There's only so far you can go with it. And then what I learned, understanding that I could leverage credit and take loans out, use credit cards, I started to really understand that part of life and really gamify it. So
Mm.
so in gamifying it, that created a whole nother level of understanding, but also another level of stress. And then being like, okay, am I doing things I should be doing? I don't know if I can do this. Because I've always been able to see processes and systems and then create systems in my life. For example, when I had these sales jobs, I would I would create all sorts of little systems. I would have people making phone calls for me, setting up my appointments. I just had all these little systems going. And I eventually got to a place where I was able to create a little side business that, exploded and was doing really well with that. But again, it had me operate and run through the world in this energy of, oh, I can't really tell people what I'm doing because am I working in a gray area? I don't know if it's not necessarily, I wasn't doing anything illegal, but I was definitely towing the line and doing things, like there's a saying, you're better off doing things versus asking for permission, right? Saying you're sorry versus asking for permission. That's a saying.
Right. I've heard that.
Yes. Yeah. So that was my attitude for a really long time. And again, I was very successful in that world from the outside looking in, but inside, and the way I operated energetically, where my spirit was and how I felt, it was never aligned. It was never aligned. And when I when I had to shut down my business, I was in a position where, okay, I have enough. And by the way, I had most of this money in checking accounts. That's how crazy I was. I can't believe
Wow.
back knowing what I know, I'm like, I can't, but I had most of that money in checking accounts, but it did allow me because I had enough put away to slow down, right? And then that's when I started to dive into the Bitcoin part of it. And in slowing down and understanding what Bitcoin is, and then eventually, you know, seeing what Caspa is, it reconnected me to that alignment of being in my pure truth and showing up the way I'm meant to show up, right? So having a system and having a sound money protocol, which we talk about Bitcoin as a store of value, and then learning what you learn through this journey, it absolutely has you vibrate and function in a completely different way in this world. And I see it as just being able to be aligned with my truth, and there's just nothing that I need to hide or run from or anything like that. I can be who I am. And then, and I've shared this on other spaces, but being able to relate to people, it's definitely
Mm.
allowed me to have that reconnection with my family, to understand what they're going through and relate to that and have patience with it. So it's absolutely allowed me to slow down, connect more spiritually to how I'm supposed to vibe in this world and how I'm supposed to live my life and all that. So yeah, it's been a beautiful thing.
Do you think Caspa has made it more efficient for you to develop relationships?
Wow. Yes. Yeah,
How so?
it yeah, so going back to what I talked about, where I can be more aligned with my truth and just be very present. I think having, and I mentioned this on the last call, right? But when you're interacting with someone and you're able to transact without having that third party, there's an energy behind that where you can be very aligned to who you are. And I find myself, when I do connect with people, that there's none of that energy siphoning from what's happening or how I'm interacting with people. So I mean, my friends tell me it when I talk about, I definitely bring up Caspa just about every time I talk to a friend. but it does come up very organically because it's, what do people ask you when they haven't talked to you in a little while? Oh, what do you got going on? What have you done? Oh, yeah, I was on the space and looking in the cast. Oh, I just watched this video. You should check this out. This is what I'm up to. So it comes up very organically. But I also, and I think this goes back to my experience in business and just being able to relate to people and meet them where they're at. It's not something that I shove down anybody's throat, right? I think the energy that I have and when I come to a conversation or I have an interaction with someone, it's very organic. It's very organic and it is what I'm up to. And then I typically get, hey, well, tell me a little bit more about that. And I literally am putting people on wallets all the time. I put right after our call, I had a friend text me and I hadn't talked to him in a long time. And we got into Kaspa and he downloaded a wallet. He's like, man, that's fast. It's like, should I buy more XRP? I'm like, no, but check out Kaspa. You won't want to buy XRP anymore.
How many people have you recruited into Kaspa?
So literally my son's godmother is on the space. She can attest to all this. So literally everybody that I have come into contact with that's close to me. So I would say, and for me, the shifts more so started in mid July. So once I started sharing more on X, but if I had to put a number on it, Cara, I would say, somewhere between 30 to 40 people.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a whole classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be a lot more.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know if
It
I
really
have
is.
brought that many in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember hearing it on another space, or I think it was a Bitcoin space. Somebody was defending. They were going back and forth with the Bitcoin Casper stuff, and they're like, over the past 5 years, I've orange pilled. That's another thing too. I don't look at it like I'm green pilling anybody, but or pilling anything. I make it super simple. Hey, download this wallet. That's what I've done. Most of the people that I've put onto it, and then there's people that I'm very close to, like my son's godmother who's on the call. We talk all the time, and it's just like it's naturally what comes up, and she sees it very clearly too. She's a Caspa holder. So yeah, it really is. I think when you've gone through what I've gone through and you've let things go the way I've let things go, it just naturally comes out and it's naturally in my energy. And people want to naturally know a little bit more, right? So that's why my barber takes it, my massage therapist takes it. I get manis and petties. My mani pedi lady takes it. So
Do you
yeah.
have any people from the Panama community reach out to you and you tell them about Caspa? Is that something that you're still doing? Are you still in contact?
Well, so I put my family members. I was down there in early July, and in late June, actually went down there twice. So I went down there in late June, and I went and visited my cousins. So there were a handful of cousins that I put on it, and they've talked to me. They told me they've gone back and forth, but that's the extent of what I've been able to do with family in Panama. I think the next step for me though is whether it's creating some sort of, I'm moving most of my time to building within this community. So, and I've had people recently, especially after our space or we announced a space that said they're willing to come on and talk to us about building within the space, right, and building the community. But yeah, we're just scratching the surface with all this. In my blood, building businesses is what I've done, and I'm essentially pretty new to crypto, so I think it's been a season of learning for me, a lot of learning. And there was a part of me that didn't really want to put myself out until I knew enough. But the push over the past month and a half has been, I should say, the tug and the calling to speak up and share and make this. Casper makes it easy, Cara. It
It
really does.
does.
Casper
Yeah.
makes it easy, right? We talked about in the last call. You said I got to get my son on it, and the wall. It's really easy to set up a wallet. I did it through text after the call with my friend who I hadn't talked to in a long time, and I remember trying to do that with Bitcoin, and it just was a little bit of a process, and it wasn't as easy. I still got some people on Bitcoin, but with Caspa, it's just been way easier.
I don't know. I have a teenager and I'm still trying to get him to make his own pancakes. So I don't know. I'm still working on it.
Also, you know what? I'll say this. If I have an opportunity to sit and talk with somebody, for the most part, they go ahead and download the wallet. But this did happen to me the other day. I went to this little kava kratom bar, and they actually had they had the currencies pinned to the wall, and I brought it up that way, and I was paying my tab, and I asked if she would take Caspa, and that was the first time I got some resistance. She's like, could we do it next time? I'm like, sure, sure. So the next time I'll keep you updated on that one. But I did get somebody who didn't download it right away.
It's really
So it's
awesome.
gonna happen. It's gonna happen, you know.
Yeah. How do you respond to critics who dismiss Caspa as a distraction or a shitcoin?
I typically laugh and, and move on, right? I think on X we have an opportunity to give our 2 cents whenever we see it on here, right? But that's not really what happens in real life when you're talking to people. People aren't really that nasty. Just we
Yeah, it's just online.
it's online. We're in this little echo chamber and we see it online.
I never see it in person.
Me neither. Yeah, it doesn't happen in person.
I've never once seen it in person.
It absolutely the only time I would get some, I shared that I went to a handful of Bitcoin conferences, and even with that, it wasn't anything nasty that I would get with people. It was when I would have the one-on-one conversations, and probably get a little closer to some of the Bitcoin maxis, that I would get something. But I've mainly only gotten it from these people that have been in Bitcoin for, and I've noticed that there's a trend. It's people that have been in it since like 2020 and just know about specific influencers, and more so the influencers that have come into the space since 2020, and since the narrative of Bitcoin shifted from a peer-to-peer electronic cash system
Store of
to store
value.
value. And then when you try to bring up some history and some facts, we get, it's a shit coin. We get that crap. And you can tell they haven't gone any further with their analysis and their research, and they know Bitcoin for what it is right now.
Mhm.
Do some digging. I think it's important to do that, right? It's important to question things, and never never ossify, never settle on what you think something is. There's so much to learn in this space. There's so much to sift through, right? There's so much crap out there. And by crap I mean, because I don't like to talk bad about any other projects. I talk about the information and the way the information's being relayed to us. And that's the hardest part a lot of times, is being able to sift through that, and then encourage people to stick with it and do your own research, and how do you feel about this? How do you see this? Why do you see it this way? So continue to have those conversations.
That's beautiful. I like that. And I like that you don't see it in black and white or right or wrong. You're really seeing the whole gamut. I like that a lot. And I think it's really important too because it reduces the polarization and the divisiveness and just the extreme responses and reactions, and it creates more relatedness where people can really understand where you're coming from without it being perceived as somehow judgmental or anything like that. I think that's really important. I like that. I like your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think it's important to go to, why are people responding the way they respond? And for me, that is a distinction that I'm grateful that I have. And I've been that way for a long time, even before this whole crypto thing. But typically when people lash out or respond to anything in a certain way, it has nothing to do with what you may be initially talking about. there's something underlying there. It's typically something else or the way they process things or how they look at life. So there's when you're having a civil conversation and like we talked about when we have these conversations in real life, if there's some back and forth, there's mutual okay understanding, and then you can kind of get where somebody's at with something. But online, it's like you get things thrown in your face, and then it's like, oh, it's a shit coin. You're retarded. You're stupid. Like all those words. It reminds me of I played on a bunch of football teams. It reminds me of the bullying some of my teammates would do with people because they were football players and they thought they were better than other people.
Hazing. Yeah.
That's what it is. And
Yep.
I was always one of those people that would like I would fight my teammates and be like, "Bro, why are you treating people like that?" That's just something I've always had in me, so I was always defending people, and it's kinda carried on into this, and that's how I see it. So, I just laugh at it. It's child's play, comparing us to fart coin. It's hilarious is the way I take.
So that part is funny, but what about things that are more sad, if it's okay if we kinda move into the
Yeah,
direction of the emotion
well,
of sadness?
yeah,
Because
curious how you
because because there's so that's part of the chaos, right? So if you're looking at the Venn diagram of chaos, some of it's funny, but then there's an element of sadness. And some people they get reactive when they think of their own pain or business loss, or they feel their principles are being pushed upon, and they wonder if they're doing the right thing by holding on to their coin, and so they feel this defensive need to push back because they're being challenged. What do you think about that that emotion that they're feeling, or rage, or what defensiveness, whatever emotion they're feeling that's causing them to not see the hilariousness of it, but actually wanna do the hazing?
yeah, that's interesting. I look at it for where they are with things, right? So again, I go back to when somebody reacts with high emotions like that, then there's something else going on there that we really don't know or understand. And it's typically, in my experience, just the way I see it, it's typically not whatever so if somebody is holding on to their coin to get pissed off and they're like, "Oh, you don't know it's a scam and all this and that." Well, we don't know what they went through. We don't know their story, what they're attached to or anything like that. And truthfully, I don't vibe with that energy. So I'll just move on and I don't even pay attention to it. It doesn't really touch me, Cara. That's what ends
Hi.
up it doesn't it just like I have this force field around me and I don't entertain it. I don't really see it or feel it. Now if it's a friend and somebody I know and we're having a conversation, I'll dig in a little bit deeper, right? Okay. I'm typically the calmer one in the conversation. I actually can't remember the last time I raised my voice or yelled or anything like that. It's been a long time. It's been a lot of peace through the chaos. But I try to meet people where they are, So if somebody were to be that intense with me, it's like, okay, let me, say less and just let it be and have it calm down a little bit.
De-escalate.
Yeah, de-escalate. What's it like for you? So, are there any specific narratives like that you see within, even about Caspa that you see that others are holding on to, both positive and negative, that you feel, that you feel
Um, mm,
you can
I
relate to those?
feel I feel that because Caspa is new, there's a lot of new excited energy. And I feel that a lot of other coins that have been around for longer periods of time have less of that new energy. And so they pick up on this enthusiasm that's coming from Caspa. And I think some of them are annoyed by it. It's kind of like the best analogy I can give as a narrative is when you're at a restaurant and you see a new couple and they're flirting at the table next to you, but you're alone and single and bored or whatever, and you're annoyed by the fact that they're doing the googly eyes and the footsies. And I think that's
Oh my
how
god.
Bitcoin is looking. I feel like that's how Bitcoiners are looking at Kaspa people. And
Wow.
I get this a lot because they see Kaspa as being excited and happy and joyful and really in it and being playful and just posting the memes and people are putting it in your face. And Bitcoin is going, oh, I don't want to see it. Move, get out of my face. I don't want to look at it. Leave me alone. Don't show me. That's the energy that they're putting out.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah,
That's how
I
I
see
see
that.
it.
Well, I can relate to that 100%. It does feel like they're in this long-standing relationship and there isn't any new things that they're trying or and then they look over, they're just used to doing their routine at the dinner table, and they look over and there's just a couple holding hands, looking in each other's eyes. So, yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, and
See
it's
that.
also the fact that the okay, within that new energy, there's also this sense of playfulness that's among a lot of people with the memes and the poking fun and the trying to get reactions from people. And then brings this it brings a different reaction from some coin holders, not just Bitcoin holders, but those longer term maxis that are holding different coins other than Kaspa, they tend to see this playfulness that's coming from Kaspa and they throw all these words at it. They throw their stories at it as being, oh, you guys have this agenda where you can't talk about us. You can't talk about yourselves without talking about us. It's impossible for you to discuss this coin without also discussing us. And so they put that story around it, and it makes the Caspa crowd go, hey, I have to respond to you. Now you're going to hear a whole mouthful of stuff from me. And then it just makes the other side go, ugh, do I have to hear it? And then it just becomes this frenzy of reactions to how people feel about what they have and how joyful and playful and excited that people are about it. And I feel that there's one community that's feeling very calm and complacent and very structurally one direction, and then you have Caspa coming in here with its flying energy going in every direction because there's so many possibilities. It's not just money, it's a whole network ecosystem. Things can be built on it. It's fast. It's got all these amazing qualities, and everyone's talking about every different part of what's cool about it. And these other coins that only have one direction look at Caspa and they're going, "Ugh, don't hit me with your bullets that are flying in every direction, and one of those is going to hit me." So there is a lot of that, and then it becomes propaganda.
Yeah.
And I
Mm.
would really like to hear your view on propaganda because that was something that we had briefly touched upon. And for me, that propaganda comes from stories that people repeat that they've heard other people repeat. And then the narratives get retold and they change over time, and then people believe a story rather than the research.
That 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 explanation of it is spot on. So to me, when I think of propaganda, I think of what am I constantly hearing that people aren't using their own words to describe what's going on right now, right? So when you hear there is no second best, or they're repeating these memes and they're just saying things to say things because other people have said it. All that's propaganda. All that's not having the conversation and actually having discourse and going back and forth and understanding how things are actually working and what is actually happening. And
Yeah.
and Cara, the biggest thing about what's happening within this space is that we are seeing for the first time ever, because again, Caspa and Bitcoin specifically, when you understand that they're proof of work systems, they're bounded by energy, they're hard capped, and those properties are direct mirrors to what we have functioned in the fiat system, right? Where you're debased in that other system. We're seeing what the free market is for the first time ever. So we've never lived in a market like this. And what happens in markets is that there's, specifically with Kaspa and Bitcoin, is that when there's competition, the truth needs to, like, well, let me ask you this before I go a little bit further into that. Do you believe that all these coins are going to survive, or do you think it's just going to be a handful of them? What are your thoughts on that?
I think many are gonna survive because I think people get excited by making meme coins as reactions to people's narratives.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. That
I
makes
think that it's not even about the money. Sometimes people just make a coin, like the Jerry coin, just to say, "You know what? I'm just gonna make this."
sense.
And so I think that some people really got into P2P and this act of making coins because it's fun. So
Right.
it's not always about soundness. I mean,
It
people
isn't.
do meme coins knowing that it's just throwing money away and risking. So
Yeah, it's
there is a
going to the
hope
casino.
there.
It's right. It's going to the casino and pulling on the slots, right? So
Yeah.
there's gonna be some of that. There's definitely gonna be some of that. I think it's gonna exist within these ecosystems, right? And I think only a handful of the sound, Caspa and Bitcoin being two of them, and then maybe a handful of them exist because they actually bring utility and service the world in some way, shape, or form. And I'm open to being wrong about things, right? For me, this isn't about being right or wrong. There are sound principles that I personally have studied that make sense to me, that I feel on a cellular level that work. And for me, as long as those are true, that's what has me hold Caspa, and I do hold some Bitcoin too. That's what has me in this space for those reasons. So I think when you understand that, and that's generally the basis of how you're coming at this, then there's going to be competition within the space, and there's going to be all this back and forth, and all that's going to happen. That's a part of having things play out and seeing which the cream rises at the top, right? The best of the best always ends up beating out what isn't sound, what isn't worth anything, right? And some of it's going to be, like you said, like the memes, playing out and having fun with it, maybe gambling here and there. So yeah, that's my take on it, right? And at the same time, I'm I've been like this my entire life, and I think it's why I relate to Caspa, and Caspa makes sense for me. Caspa has this culture of innovation, of saying, okay, like you can create a meme on Caspa. If you want to go do that, cool, you can go do that. I'm not into that. I think they're funny though, but who am I to tell somebody else what they should or shouldn't do with their money? And I think that's what we hear from these chains that are ossified, that haven't grown, that they're stale, they're stuck in their ways. They think that things are just going to stay the way they are. And literally nothing on this planet is the same from this moment to the next moment, right? So I think Caspa and Bitcoin bring this sound money foundational principles that are super important, that, we, again, going back in history, the way we used to function with each other, the way we used to treat each other before these systems were implemented, specifically the Fed in 1913. And then when they unpegged gold to fiat in 71, we can see that. We have information and evidence of what that does to a society. And it has literally made us worse with each other.
Mhm.
It is it is the source of so many of our problems, you know? So I think that's what, again, big props to Bitcoin for creating what it's created. And to me, it's not a competition between those two, right? I think a handful of them, maybe a couple more will pop up here and there. We'll see. But you have to stand on your own. And when
Yeah.
you're talking about, or you're comparing, of course you're going to do that, because you're going to go back and forth between, oh, this did this, that did that. That's the way the market works. You see what's happening over here, and then entrepreneurs go, okay, I think I can make that better. I think I can do this and that. That's the part. That's a big part of decentralization. That's a big part of bringing ideas to the market. That's a big part of improving on what we've built previously, and that needs to
Mhm.
continue forever and ever. I really do think that we've been halted in our technology, like with how technology has come about. I mean, in the system that that we've been in, we should be doing way better in life, but we've been debased for
There
such
was
a long.
less
Right?
freedom,
Yeah,
and now there's more truth, more freedom, more innovation because of Kaspa. I mean, Bitcoin, I think you had mentioned it was a check on fiat, right? Because fiat takes and takes and takes. There's all this inflation because it's continually being printed. But Kaspa, I think you had mentioned this, it feels like an evolution, right? And now there's more freedom, and freedom is a universal truth. And there wasn't as much freedom. We were stifled. And even with the new coins like Ethereum, when it was new, it still didn't have a lot of freedom because of the expense of using it. And with Solana, it wasn't total freedom either because it's infinitely put out there. This doesn't have the scarcity. So the freedom aspect is a universal truth, and we were debased. And now things are more open, and now we have developers building on Caspa to give us more freedom, more innovation. And I'm curious, I would love to build something on Caspa, and I've heard that there's ways to do it, and I'm open-minded to it. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I would love to build something on Caspa just so that I can feel that freedom.
I'm with you there. I mean, and with the technology that we have and the community that we have, it just makes sense to try it out, right? And
Yeah.
exist in this because there's again, I think it goes back to culture and going back to Jonathan's interview with Vlad in that 7.5 hour marathon of a conversation. There's so much to digest with that. But the overwhelming feeling that I got, and I think, why he probably this is my opinion on why he did it, was to set a tone to be like, "Hey, I'm just a part of this community. Here's why I did it. I didn't even wanna do it." And I would do it different if I had another opportunity to do it. So, amongst so many things that he talked about, and it's bringing people from all walks of life into this technology. And again, at the core of it, what it does is it continues on this premise that being able to transact peer to peer, right? That's at the foundational level for the masses. For the masses is so important. And Bitcoin was, my opinion, captured, and it stopped evolving. If you just look at the numbers, I mean, you
Yeah.
cannot onboard the world on the base layer of I hold base layer Bitcoin. Like, I'm not giving up my sovereignty.
Do
And
you
then
feel that
so one of their narratives is, "Oh, people don't give a shit about that." Yeah, people don't give a shit about that because they don't know about it. And your propaganda that you're throwing out. Nobody cares. People are retards. People don't care.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
that's
heard
that's the
that.
overwhelming message. That's the overwhelming message. Of course, we're hiding information from them. But information's getting out quicker and quicker. Technology is getting better and better. People aren't dumb. People are gonna figure this out.
I heard one Bitcoin maxi lady, I'm not gonna say her name to respect her privacy, although she said this publicly. She said that sovereignty wasn't important, that it was low priority, and that people are gonna prioritize it less and less, and that it wasn't really that important. And when she said it, I was shocked because for me, sovereignty was the number one reason I got into crypto. It wasn't my number 2 or my number 3 or my number 4. It was my number 1 reason because I wanted autonomy. I wanted sovereignty. I wanted to have money that my ex-husband couldn't take from me. I wanted money that a bank couldn't say I couldn't have access to. I was denied access to a bank. I was denied access to my own bank account for years. I was denied money from my own paycheck for years. I was completely exploited, and I wanted sovereignty. I wanted my own money. I wanted access to the fruits of my labor. I wanted to be able to sell my house and have the money too. And it did not work out that way because I did not have sovereignty. And to me, sovereignty is everything. And to hear someone in the Bitcoin community say sovereignty isn't something that people care about, I really took it in a very strong way when I heard that because it's
Mhm.
certainly not true for me.
I think it's so beautiful to have you speak on that. Like I could feel you in your words and obviously knowing your story, how important that is. And I think us being in our little bubble, especially if, I'm sure there's people on the call from other countries, but if you live in the US or, in Europe, we're pretty okay for the most part. But there's so many other, there's 8 billion people on this planet. And I respect a lot of these Bitcoiners and the way they talk. A lot of it has really hit me at the core. And as I've done my research with it, and the same with you, exactly with what you're talking about, I looked at this as a tool of sovereignty. And I didn't really even think about what that was before, but once you understand what that does for you, and again, going back to the energetic and the spiritual standpoint of that, of not having a third party mess with your energy. Because again, going back to that's what
Yep.
he
Yep.
is, right? When you do not have that and you have your own energy to transact and to deal with other people with directly, it opens up I'm getting goosebumps because it like
Yeah.
this literally lights me up. It
Yeah.
opens up a completely different way to operate in this world. And that is a narrative from Bitcoiners that it never sat well. Okay. I mean, here's the thing too, I've heard Bitcoiners talk about this here recently, especially some of them that have jumped onto Kaspa, where they didn't even think about, oh, the layer two, I didn't know Lightning wasn't Bitcoin. And that's one of the narratives. That's one of the propagandas. Like, oh, it's not no big deal. Like most people don't care about it. That's one of the narratives that's just why are we listening to that? Why are people saying that?
'Cause I
And I
don't
think
know. Yeah, just like the narrative they're putting out there that Bitcoiners can do a 51% attack on Kaspa, even though they don't even share the same mining equipment that matches the same algorithm. It's just these stories being repetitively put out there because it's propaganda and people will choose to hear what they wanna hear, and only if they're interested in the truth are they really gonna look for it.
absolutely. It reminds me of the a story that I heard, and there was, one of the cast members somebody in the community put a really awesome, I think he wrote it himself, about the difference between AC and DC. Have you seen that?
Oh, I loved that.
But think about how people talked about electricity back
Yeah.
in the early 1900s.
They said DC would be bad, that it would be not worth it.
Yeah, and then, just looking at Nikola Tesla's life, right? He talked about some of the things that are just starting to happen now. He talked about that 100 years ago,
Mhm.
you know? So I think that's why it's important that we continue to have these conversations and bring the truth to light and get people on these wallets, Cara, including your son, ASAP.
Oh, definitely. I wanna share something. So, I'm a big fan of going caving. I like to go into caves and go really deep down into the earth, and I was in this one cave that was really dark, but we came across a section that had a string of light bulbs, and that's very unusual to be in a cave and see a string of light bulbs, and it was plugged in, and there was a tour guide who started talking about the light bulbs and gave this entire story about how in that community where that cave was, people did not want light bulbs. They wanted to stay with their candles, and he was telling the story about how he had to convince people the importance of having light bulbs, the convenience it would give them, that it would allow them to work at night, and people got upset. They said, "We don't wanna work at night. We don't want the ability to work at night. We wanna be able to go to sleep at a decent hour. We don't wanna see that busy light at night. It's
Mm,
gonna ruin our skyline. It's gonna ruin everything." and we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the wiring. We don't have this, we don't have that. Nobody wants it. We're perfectly fine with our candles. And
Mhm.
in a cave, a candle's great, but there's also a lot of problems with candles, especially the wind, and it's a fire hazard and all these other things. And it reminds me a lot of the Bitcoin conversations, right? They say, well, there's not enough people accepting it. Well, that's the same thing as saying there's not a big enough structure yet, or there's not enough satellites, there's not enough phone towers, there's not enough electric chargers. It's the same thing. It to me, it's just saying, well, we're not there yet, we're early. But technology moves and it grows and it's almost inevitable. Technology that is fast and used is going to inevitably be the direction everything goes in, just like light bulbs.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So it's important to again, it's to identify propaganda when you hear it, because nothing. These are technologies that have been brought to the world, and you kind of hear it, especially with Bitcoin, how it's more than that, and they romanticize on so many aspects of it because it was first. But at the end of the day, it's a technology. It's a technology that was brought to the world, and it's there's room for improvements with Caspa, right? There's this narrative where they're trying to stop that and not have us use light bulbs and keep the candles on, you know. But the truth, and I mean, the truth is, there's only been 1 to 3% adoption with Caspa and Bitcoin throughout the entire world, and then it's something like 10% for all of crypto.
Yeah, it's a very small number.
You hear we're on the brink of adoption. We're they're in this little bubble. It's a tiny little fragment of the world that's using this stuff right now, and they're not even using it. They're hoarding it, you know? So you can see what's being played out, and there's just massive opportunity for us. That's what they're scared of, and they're just again, they're protecting their narratives, they're protecting their stories, and it's easy to see through all the bullshit when you just look at it for what it is.
When we get smart contracts, we're going to be able to have drone technology deliver packages using the Caspa network. That
Mhm.
it's already being studied. It's already being looked at.
There
And
is so much
oh yeah.
within this Caspa
Oh,
that we don't I can't even wrap my head around, you know? I get goosebumps every time I listen to a Spaces call, and I'm like, I don't know what it means, but I know my brain needs to hear it. So so that I retain some of it and then go research it, but go ahead, continue. I cut you off there.
it's true though, there are people hoarding it, but I feel like Caspa is going to inevitably create a situation that the people hoarding it will want to hit it out of the ballpark so that it's shared, so that people have to use it because they're going to be greedy for the money that they get from it. I think that it's going to be inevitable that it's going to be adopted. And I think the only reason the number is so low, that it's less than 10% of the world that's using crypto, is because Bitcoin couldn't do what it wanted to do from the beginning. And here comes
100.
Kaspa doing exactly what Bitcoin wanted to do from the beginning. So here's our
Yeah,
real chance of really making it happen. Here's our chance, right?
abs
So this is it.
this is it. If you look back, back with the block size wars and what was happening there, there were more bigger companies like Microsoft. There was a gaming platform. There were all these companies that were using Bitcoin, and they stopped it because what's happening on the base layer, right?
Yeah.
And then you hear the talk about Lightning. Like Lightning has been something that they've been trying to kick off the ground for 8, 9 years now.
Wow.
It's not this new thing. And
Have
again,
you
it's
heard
lit.
have you heard what Jack Dorsey has said?
Yeah,
Yeah, he said
that's
if it's
true.
digital gold, it's failed. If we can't use it, it has failed.
Yeah, for its its original purpose. He needs to take a look at Kaspa. He will eventually. Again, we're such a small market. It's pretty interesting, Cara, looking at literally Bitcoin is a $2 trillion asset. And when you think of, when most people think about that, they're like, oh, there's a lot, that's a lot of money. But it actually isn't compared to how much money there is in the world and
Right.
what this market is going after. You know,
Mhm.
it's a small fragment. So because we're in this echo chamber of crypto, we think, oh, this and that, and then we go back and forth, and the we listen to these some influencers. They're not influencing shit. There is a 1 to 3% adoption with Bitcoin and Kaspa, 10% of it being used all throughout the world. I don't even think we really need to convince all these Bitcoiners. We need to just put Kaspa in people's lives, and
Yeah.
it's going to be easy. I'm actually going to be flying to Berlin, and I'm going to that Kaspa experience.
Oh, wow.
I am so looking forward to that.
That's awesome. I
I
wish
can't,
I could be there.
yeah, I wish you could be there too. That'd be awesome.
That'd be
But
really
that'll, you know, and it was pretty cool. They're going to give, I think at the door, they're going to give us $75 from the ticket that we paid for. All the vendors are going to be accepting Caspa. So I'm sure transactions are going to spike that day.
Are you gonna go
Uh,
to the nacho after party?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna full experience. I'm going to fly in on a Thursday. I'm going to stay for like 5 days.
Oh, wow. I wish I could do that. That's so cool. That
Yeah,
is
yeah. Well, that's one of my goals is to, obviously a lot of these Caspa is so young, right? We haven't. I had just bought Caspa in May of 2024,
uh-huh.
and then they happened to have an event down here in June. But I was still going down my Bitcoin rabbit hole and kind of was just holding Caspa to sell it for Bitcoin. But I'm like, oh, there's a Caspa event, and I showed up, and I think that was one of the last big ones that they ran here in the States, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember I met all these guys there. I didn't really sit there and mingle with most of them, but that was pretty cool. And yeah, it'll be exciting to be there and get to meet some of the community in person.
Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of people there, I hear. I think you're gonna have a really good time.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. And connecting the way we've connected on X, it'll be a really, really dope experience. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'll say.
13, 14 hour flight for me. One of the longest flights I've ever taken, but it'll be worth it.
I hope you're going first class.
I am a little bougie. We'll see.
Yeah. The last time I was on a plane, I had to take first class, especially if you're doing these long, long trips. I remember I went to England and I took a first class ticket to get out there. This was a long time ago. And I paid way more than a normal person should, but boy, was it worth it.
Mm, yeah, it's lovely. I'm not gonna lie. It's a different way to vibe in the world and in the sky.
That's right.
I see there's a comment on our space. Dragon wrote, "I never thought of sovereignty. I learned something."
Oh, good.
Isn't that
I'm so
beautiful?
glad that someone's seeing that. That means everything to me. Sovereignty is the most important thing to me when it comes to crypto. It's the one thing that allows me to save money that I don't have to worry about someone taking from me unless they're torturing me to death, right? It's something I can actually keep and have. I don't have to worry about a bank saying, "No, we're not gonna give you an account," or you know how banks are, "What are you gonna do with that money?"
Yeah,
And you tell them, "I'm gonna spend it on hookers and a spice rack, mind your business."
why are you asking me? I just wanna use my money. I mean, that experience, the first time you try to take a most people don't experience that, right? Unless they have a good amount that they need to move or yeah, that's another part of this, man. It's ridiculous. When your money's in the bank, it's not really your money. And
Yeah.
then what they do with it, what they do with it. They're out there lending it out, fractional reserve banking.
Yeah, when my ex-husband had control of all my money and I couldn't access anything for over a decade, I tried to go to a bank and get my own money out, and my account was red flagged because he would pretend to be me on the phone and change his voice, and so the bank had it red flagged so I could never get an account at a bank. They wouldn't even let me have access to my own money,
That's
and
insane.
it was so fucked up. It's such a messed up story. So, the only way I was able to actually get an institution to allow me to put fiat in their system was because my grandfathers were in the military, so I was able to get a Navy Federal Credit Union account because my family earned it, so I was able to do that. But even today, I can't go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or any of those big ones because of actions that were not my fault. They were used against me, and so I didn't have the sovereignty. I went many years just hoping I could have money of my own, and crypto was the hope for me from the very beginning. I saw it as my way out. It was my way of saying, I don't need a bank. I just want to give people money and accept money without a bank telling me whether or not I can have one, have an account, have multiple accounts. And even today, I feel like it's just getting started. What I really want is to have a paycheck where my paycheck goes into the crypto of my choice. I don't want it to go to the credit union. I want it to go into my wallet. I want my money. I don't want a third party having my money. I earned it. And I realize that that's almost wishful thinking because the IRS takes it out and the Social Security takes it out and third party this and third party that and insurance, everything is just everyone wants a piece of what you do. But my dream, my hope is to just be able to have my own money. My own money. That's my sovereignty. I want it. I want my life. And Kaspa is the closest thing I feel like I'm ever gonna have to freedom. In this type of world, it's the only way out of the matrix.
Amen to that. Yes. Yeah, I really your story, I'm sure there's so many women that can relate to that specifically, right? In these situations where they're literally debased in their household and
Yeah,
and they have their freedoms taken away from them like that. You hear
yeah.
stories like that in these third world countries and just like some of the cultures and how it is. And there's great stories out there on early Bitcoin being that way for people. That's how the community talked about Bitcoin in the early years. It was about banking the unbanked, right? Like that was the narrative early on. It just shifted over the past 5 years to telling us like have fun staying poor. Cool. I'm cool with being the poor chain, helping poor people be sovereign. I don't, how do you feel about that, Cara? Because I'm cool with that.
I did you ask how I feel about sovereign people with poverty? What did you say?
Exactly. You know how like we hear, oh, have fun staying poor, or
Mm,
I've actually heard it on spaces where they say if you're poor, then you use because again they talk about where
yeah.
boarding on the layer two, and that's not Bitcoin. You're giving up your sovereignty. Someone
You
else's
know,
has to stake, hold Bitcoin, and you're not. It's Lightning isn't a wallet. Lightning is a custodial service. The service from the Strike, for example, that is not a wallet. It's like you have to KYC to open up an account there. Any of these accounts that you have to open, give your personal information. That is not sovereignty, right? And that's what these people call wallet of Satoshi. Those aren't wallets; they're custodial services, right?
mhm.
And that's something that isn't talked about enough. But when you download a true wallet where you do not have to give up your personal information, that's literally the Caspian wallet, for example, is the one I use to get people on. You know that is transacting on base layer Caspa.
Yes.
Literally sending digital cash. It's like I'm handing you a digital dollar and nobody else is in our transaction, and it's being confirmed on the fastest proof of work layer 1 network on the planet.
I love that. I do have some tinfoil hat about the future when it comes to programmability. I've heard some people throw out the idea that crypto will eventually be so programmable that it will control us, whether or not we're allowed to have our own crypto, where we will not be able to spend our crypto. And that to me is one of my greatest fears about this whole thing. I'm a big fan of crypto, and I like that there are some crypto coins that are immutable, that are very difficult to attack. And you get a sense that it's secure, that you can trust that your money is your money. However, I hear these patents that are being made, patents that are being owned by Microsoft, for instance, where they're patenting the ability to mine crypto using the human body. And there's various things that are happening where they want people to be able to spend money using your body so that when you spend crypto, you're going to use your own body to do it. And then you have not only Elon Musk's Neuralink, but you have Microsoft creating another brain, a user brain interface thing. I forget the name of it, but there's a competitor to Neuralink. So you're talking about brain access for the purpose of crypto. And I'm not just saying this to say it, there's patents already regarding this. I'm not just making it up. There are patents for this that have been around for years. And when we look at that and we look at AI and we look at where drone technology is going, we have to also be aware of the direction things are taking and do what we can to push for representatives that have our interest in mind when it comes to regulation. Because I don't want to have a situation where the government can decide whether or not I can access my own crypto with my fingerprint. It's mine. I don't want someone to say I can't have it. It's mine, right? And I can already hear one particular Bitcoin maxi arguing. I can hear him on my shoulder right now. And he is saying, well, nothing is ever really yours. You'll never actually really ever have money because there can always be sanctions. There can always be forensic digital looking into things and they can just take it at any time. Anything can be confiscated. You're never really going to have sovereignty. So why have it? But for me, I have to want sovereignty because it's my only thing I'm clawing onto. It's the only thing I want. And if I don't have that, I'm just a slave. I have to have something that I feel is mine for as long as I can have it. And I do worry about the direction of where crypto is going. And there's a lot of YouTube videos you can watch where other people are having this very discussion about that. And I pay attention to it because I wanna know before it happens. I wanna have some preparation in mind if that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's why education on what Caspa is and how different it is and how it can't be captured like that is so important.
You know, I see Kaspa as freedom and I see it as truth, but I see Bitcoin as truth as well because it has such a good, strong ledger. It has a really good accounting system. So I see Bitcoin and Kaspa, both of them, as universal truths, but I don't see Bitcoin as freedom. I see Kaspa as freedom.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's why Caspa's here to continue that mission because that's what it was about to begin with. And yeah, there's that's interesting. I hadn't thought. I don't really pay attention to the news like that. I do tend to be in my own little I shared it earlier. I tend to not let anything touch me that veers me off my path, and I laugh at the dumb stuff that I hear. But you're right. You're right. Some of that is happening, and we got to be aware of it. You know,
Most
and
of it
continue.
isn't gonna be on the news. I mean, the
You're
way I found out was to go on Google Scholar, and I was looking through patents related to crypto, and I found it because the news isn't gonna tell us that.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
why
I went
platforms.
looking for it. That's the thing. I'm weird like that. I
Yeah.
need to know. I have to know.
Well, that's why we got to hold these spaces and talk so that people stay informed, right? Because that's how a lot of this information gets. How that's how a lot of the truth gets to people is by people talking about it. Because some of it, a lot of it's buried, and it's buried in the propaganda, and then you see the narrative shifts. But the new people coming into this space, it's getting. I mean, especially with what's happened with Bitcoin and what's happening with Casper right now, there's just a lot of that propaganda FUD being thrown out there, and it's easy to get lost in it. That's why these
So
conversations.
how do you stay grounded while you're navigating the space?
You know, I think it's important to have your routines and the things that bring you back to connecting to yourself. So for myself, it's my fitness is super important to me. So making sure that I start my days with the right energy and that I stay aligned with that. And I really trust my instincts. I think what happened with what I shared earlier with my journey being in fiat land and trying to make money and all that, you get disconnected from yourself because you think that that's a thing, going out there and making money. And a lot of people get lost in that, right? That's a very low level frequency to operate in the world where, oh, and I get it, right? Like some people have to go out there and work and try to survive. But for me, I'm very fortunate where I was able to stack a good amount up and find Bitcoin, find Kaspa, and be able to slow things down. And I think making sure I'm aligned with my fitness, and that's the thing, Cara. I mean, I don't know if this has happened for you too. Since I've been in since I've been down this rabbit hole, since I've been in this space, I take better and better care of myself. I've gotten, as I've gotten older, like a fine wine, I've gotten better with age.
Mhm. I'll
And
say.
I contribute I contribute a lot of it to just being able to operate this way. Like, everything's slowing down. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s, but I feel so young. I feel like I'm just getting started?
So you
So,
say that the sound money system of Caspa has a lot of healing potential.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I get that for some people, it's, "Okay, let me put a little bit in this, and I need the money the number to go up," right? Yeah, I get that that's where some people are with it. But I think what ends up happening if you continue to go down that path is what opens up is what it's actually here to do, and that's to preserve your energy, right?
Yeah.
And if you can get into understanding that that's what it's doing, because even if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of fiat, and you start to look at it from a perspective of, okay, but I'm not going to worry about number go up. So you kind of got to, this is different for every individual on here, right? So depending on where you're at, maybe you don't need to be putting 100% like I do of most of my fiat into it, but maybe it's 10% because that's what you can do and that's what you're okay with. But then you start creating some habits, and then eventually that 10% becomes 15%. Then you move a little bit more time over. Then you start listening to what's happening in the space. And then you start feeling the energy, and then it's a little bit more and more, you know? But that's the way I see it functioning for most people that, maybe financially they can't move everything over or all their time over, because I get it. People gotta work, gotta pay bills. There's a system that's.
I think you just got cut off, Juan. Is your microphone still on? Let's give Juan a minute. It looks like there's some technical difficulties. I know he did say that he was using his laptop for the first time to do this space. It looks like he's reconnecting right now. All right, and it looks like he's back. Okay, here he is. All right. Welcome back, Juan.
All right. I have my laptop plugged in, but it just went off. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. I don't know where I was in my ramble.
How do you feel, Juan, about us opening the floor to a few questions?
I think that would be beautiful.
Yeah?
We should do that. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We're going to open the floor up. If anyone wants to request to speak, go ahead and do so. We've covered a few topics: spirituality, universal truth, Kaspa, propaganda, narratives, stories, healing, sovereignty, hookers and spice racks. So yeah, if there's anything you want to break up, feel free. Don't feel like you have to stay on a specific subject. All right, we have someone requesting now. Awesome. All right, Flex, you are a speaker. Welcome. We also have George. So I'm going to bring both of these speakers up.
Hey everyone. Hey Cara, thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Flex or George? I can't tell who's talking.
It's Flux.
Okay, hi Flex. How are you feeling?
Hey.
It's good to have you back.
I'm all right. I'm managing myself. So I'm keeping myself sane by fortunately listening into spaces like this.
Oh, I'm glad. We missed you while you were gone.
Thank you for the warm reception. I didn't expect it. So really appreciate all the good and kind gestures. It's very encouraging.
Well, I definitely felt that you were missing. I remember looking for you, going, "Where is he? It's been months." And then you just pop up out of nowhere and you're like, "I'm back."
Yeah. Not really, but I'm just glad to see what's happening around, and I'm amazed with VJ poking the hole on the Bitcoin maxis and opening the door. But anyway, I wanted to share something on what's happening on this part of the world.
Okay.
I'm based in I'm based in Malaysia, which is like in Southeast Asia, right? So I'm not sure if you guys are aware what's happening in Indonesia right now, which is a neighboring country, a country of I think 300 million people. It's an agrarian society. 40% of the population lives in poverty, like hardcore poverty. It's, I mean, that's the country where the tsunami occurred in 2006 and destroyed it. But anyway, long story short, right now there is a political instability there where the government raised the monthly salary, you can say, for their members of parliament or equivalent to the senators in the US by $3,000, just $3,000, while at the same time they have been enforcing austerity measures. So they're removing the subsidy in fuel and every other thing in health, etc., etc. So the population went berserk. This is not the first time that's happening in Indonesia. They're relatively very peaceful and they are super resilient people. However, when things like this happen, they don't keep quiet. They will actually take to the streets. And when that happens, you can foresee like hundreds of people will die between the police and mostly the students. It's the university students who run and were very energetic about bringing about change. But my point is, in Indonesia, where the new president took over after a democratic election last year, and he's going to be in power for the next 6 years, 6 to 7 years. They brought a law, kind of like you can see like the SEC or the Federal Reserve made a law, national law that says, and listen to this, if you don't transact in your bank account, it will be frozen after 3 months. Now, let me be more specific. if you don't transact in your bank account, subclause, deposits don't include as transactions, which means you can imagine there are millions of elderly people, sick people who are not able to work. And this is a country just like Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Nepal, India, Bangladesh. These countries depend a lot on remittance money because a big part of their population go and work in various parts of the world, and they send money back home to their parents and so on. Sometimes the money don't get touched, so it's just deposit all the way. But if you don't spend a cent, the new law says they can freeze your bank account, and it applies to anybody. That's what I wanted to share, and it's happening right now. So coming back to what you all say, self-sovereignty, which is exactly why I'm into Kaspa and the technology by itself, which is a quantum leap. It's not even in my opinion, it's a fact. I can foresee this happening in various other countries. Of course, it will start with the more less developed countries, with all due respect to all of them and with all else equal. But to give you a picture, 3 months, if you don't transact anything and deposits are not included, they'll freeze your bank account, period. F you. Yeah,
That is,
that's all.
thank you for sharing that, Vlad. That I have not heard that specifically in Indonesia, but you just said what I have always thought was always going to happen. That has always been something that's been on the back of my head is what is going to happen when the banks want to force you to use fiat instead of being sovereign. And you've just said this is happening. It's happening in this other part of the world. And people are going to have their accounts frozen if they're not going to use the bank to spend money. And it's a disgusting use of power against the people. It's a big thumb on the population. It's to enforce slavery, and they want to keep their money how they want to have it, but they don't want people to choose their own money. And that's such a lack of autonomy to let people choose what kind of currency they want to transact in. For me, I think people should have the choice if they want to interact with a by trading pigs or beads or scissors or energy or crypto or paper or metal or liquids. I think people should choose and have that option to choose what they transact with, just like bartering. But that's just me. And it disturbs me when I see oligarchies and the elite and shadow governments and people enforcing things that require the police to decide whose side they're on. It breaks my heart. It hurts my soul to even feel it because it's so anti choice for the people. That's it's very sad. I'm glad that you shared that. I didn't know that that was currently happening in Indonesia. That's
Yeah,
really sad.
it's happening right now. And as we speak, the protest is still ongoing. I think there are about maybe 40 or 50 people have died.
Oh
The
no.
people have, yeah, the people have entered like the Senate building. They've burnt it down, parts of it across the country. They have entered one of their richest members of parliament, like an elected member, who are very, very powerful. And literally, when they entered his house, there were 28 cars. This is a country with 40% of poverty, and the worth of the 28 cars, 30 million US dollars. He even had an Iron Man statue worth like $100,000. Can you imagine that? They
One.
literally looted everything, burnt down everything. They don't care. But that's not the violence. It should be, I wouldn't say it shouldn't be a resort, but it should be a last resort. In this case, they have left with no choice. Bank accounts getting frozen. They've raised their salary. by just $3,000, but it's a big deal. This is a country that earns an average of about, I think, $300 per month, if
Oh,
I'm not
wow.
mistaken.
That's a
Tops. Yeah,
lot of
top.
change. Wow.
And this includes, like, I'm talking about the like like the Uber drivers or the Uber riders, including the overtime and extra time. $300-$400 tops. That's it. So they were really, really pissed off. So as we speak, that's what's happening. I don't see the president of the country reversing the law anytime soon. So people are going to continue to suffer. So in the long run, I do see, like, this is where brilliant use case of for Kaspa, especially, which is
Yeah,
basically the only option left.
it is.
That's
It is.
yeah, I
It,
don't
it is
see
the
any other
last.
option.
It is the last option. And even Jonathan was saying in his recent interview with Vlad that he believes
Yeah,
Dynamite is going to be World War III resistant because that's where we're headed. I mean, that's where we're headed is World War III, and Caspa is designed to be as World War III resistant as possible. And I know it's a dark place to look at, but it is reality. We do have people who want other people to not have money. That's a reality. I'm glad that you shared that and had the courage and bravery to say that. Thank you.
no, you're most welcome. I have always been saying the same thing for the last 10 years. Maybe it's just my rebellious nature. I just, we need authority. I'm not a fan of like anarchic society. More like I'm an advocate of laissez-faire environment. However, just like you, I have experienced and I'm still experiencing nasty things from the bank. I have been prevented from taking out my bank money
Yeah.
and I was left in the lurch. So I do know, I feel, and I know how it is. I
And
just don't like the banks.
I think I remember reading that you had to take out 40% of your CASPA recently just to take care of yourself because of recent circumstances. So I just want to say that my heart goes out to you and to anyone listening. If you do want to help Flux, that he does have a Caspa wallet and he is accepting donations, and I can vouch for him. He's legit. And if you want to see more about what's been happening with him, check out his Twitter page.
Hey, thanks a lot, Cara. I didn't expect that. Really, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. George, I see you're a speaker. Did you have anything you wanted to share with us? So it looks like your mic is on, or now it's off again. You can go ahead and speak though. And now it's back off. Okay, looks like George is reconnecting. I think he's having some technical difficulties over there. And he's re-requested. So let's see if we can get him back in here. All right, George, you're a speaker. Looks like he got disconnected again.
We lost George. I wanted to chime in on Flux's share. Flux, I donate.
He got disconnected again.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead. I don't know why there
Okay.
was a lag, but yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, Flux, I remember you from when I had the faceless profile and how much you contributed to me learning about Caspa because you were very, very active a little while back, and I heard about your story literally today. I was like, well, I hadn't seen you post in a long time. So right before the call, I literally went on and donated a little bit to your cause, man. So thank you for coming up and sharing. I could feel what's happening with just how you shared your story. And that's really what all of this is about. It's about, serving parts of the world that, some of us over here in the US, we really don't know. And it's important that we hear these stories and people know what's really happening because, that's the stuff that we need to know about and support. So yeah, man, I just appreciate you being back, and sounds like you're healthier, but yeah, man, we're here for you.
Thank you so much. I don't see who's speaking. Is it George?
Juan.
Juan, thanks a lot, man. Yeah. What? Yeah, I mean, really appreciate it. Yeah, I didn't expect it. It was like a last resort. But what I wanted to say is, look, I I sold all my Bitcoin. Like I converted all my Bitcoin in my Kaspa. So like 95% of my net worth is in Kaspa. Unfortunately, we don't have a lending platform, and I'm not in a position to switch Kaspa back to Bitcoin to use that as a collateral and get some fiat to manage the expenses. Hence, why I was forced to sell at least about 40,000. I don't have much, but that's not the point here. So I was watching XSIM's podcast with Cascade. These guys are coming out with the lending platform. Essentially, you can lend your Caspa and then get some USDT. I think that's the way to go about it because I can't take a bank loan. They have blacklisted me due to, yeah, other nasty reasons over the decade. So that leaves me in a spot. But I'm really looking forward to all the apps, especially the lending and DeFi coming in. So I can just live on a Caspa standard. I can work, I can pay back, and I can take an unlimited loan. My Caspa is not sold. My kid will be fine. My wife will be happy. And if I happen to exit suddenly, they know what to do because the Caspa is still there. So, but anyway, just want to take the opportunity to say thanks a lot to you again. Really enjoyed your story, and I'm continuing to follow you. You know, keep going, man. It's very inspiring.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.
Most welcome. Yeah.
Do we have anyone else that would like to share or speak? We have some more time. We'd like to see if anyone else wants to share anything that's on their mind. Feel free to request to be a speaker. Juan, I guess it's just you and me.
Just you and me.
I'm
The
good
man
with
supposed to be.
that. Oh, we do have a requester. Let's see who this is.
Oh man, no, I'm kidding. That's great.
Here's I guess it's GigaCast. All right, GigaCast, you are live. I think there's a little delay.
Hello. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, I just wanted to come up and say, Flux, I was actually really touched by your story, man. That you found Caspa, as a form of sovereignty for yourself, your family, and you know, and also, yeah, man, I'm really touched by you. I will definitely be sending you a little bit of something of whatever I can send currently. And also, not sure if you know, but there are a lot of DeFi protocols coming out, like a lot of DeFi apps. We're kind of just on hold with Casplex and Igra Labs right now, but there is another lending protocol. It's called Fervent Finance. It's a product, I believe, from the Zealous Swap team, which is a decentralized exchange that's coming out soon. Just waiting on Lex to release their smart contracts here, but a lot of exciting things to come out, man, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something that you'll be able to benefit from. So yeah.
Also,
Thank
have you
you.
heard of Castlend? KASLEND.io? Has anyone
I
heard of
did
that?
look it up. Sorry to interrupt you, Cara. I did look it up because I'm in a situation where I need, if I can use Caspa as a collateral, that'd be amazing. And it's the best time right now because, I mean, nobody knows the future, but we know that, this is kind of like the bottom. So it's only going to, more likely going to go up considering the macro situation. So borrowing at the lowest and when your LTV is high, that when the price goes up, it will repay it by itself. So that's amazing. And I did look up Castland, but nothing came about. By the way, GigaCast, yeah, I've seen Fervent Finance. I'm following them closely, both Classblacks and Igra. But you know, I don't want to be desperate. And DeFi smart contracts means it can get hacked. We can say it may not happen in Casper, but we never know. So my intuition says just follow Cascade. I don't know about the others so much, because I trust Elliot a lot and the team in Cascade. Not to say I don't trust the others, it's just that they give more credibility to me personally at this point of time. But I'm really looking forward to everything else. Like you said, yeah, live on the Kaspa standard. That'll be amazing.
Thank you. And thank you, GigaCast, for your support and for saying such kind words to Flux. It's really beautiful. I'm familiar with Cascade only by name. I'm not too familiar with them. I just know that it's Kaskad.app, and that's about it.
I just wanted to say that's also the first time I'm hearing of them too. Actually, I'm not too familiar with them.
The XXIM podcast released, Elliot was on, or Flux shared that earlier, but they just, on YouTube, they just put out a video talking about what that protocol is going to be about. But it's great.
Awesome. George just requested to be a speaker, so I think we have George back. George, if you can get your mic on, we're listening.
Hi. First of all, I'm sorry I had some technical issues here on my side. And second of all, thank you for letting me speak here. And I want to say hi to every Casper bots that are listening to this conversation. We are instead really bots, really cool bots. So I have a question because I've been heard a lot of things about layer twos, Casplex, Igra, and another initiatives around the layer twos. Also, I heard the Jonathan interview, and he also talked about that a little bit. And the question is, how do you see the competition between Casplex and Eager Labs being acting in favor of Caspa users and not against it?
For me personally, I'm a big fan of Igra Labs, and part of it is because Pavel was part of, I believe he was part of DAG Labs, and so he's been through this from the ground up, and he's part of Igra Labs, and they're very meticulous. But what I really like about Igra Labs is that they're transparent. They've been transparent about everything. And so one thing that a lot of us really enjoy about Igra Labs is that they answer questions, they release information that they can, but they don't make promises they can't keep. Casplex, on the other hand, has made timelines more than once and then not delivered on those timelines. So I have a healthy skepticism of Casplex. However, I do believe in second chances. I believe in third chances. I believe in people turning things around and being innovative, because I think failure is part of success. So I don't have any animosity towards Casplex, but I do feel like if we're going to compare them, I feel like Igra Labs has a lot more credibility. However, Casplex has brought a lot to Caspa. They brought the KRC-20, and even though the launch wasn't what we had hoped and it did have a bumpy start, they have provided, and I think that's something to be commended. Juan, what do you think?
Yeah, and following it, I pretty much aligned with everything that you just mentioned. Ideally we want to stay on the layer one. So I am all about that. But specifically with what Flux just shared, in his situation, it'd be great if he could collateralize some of it and not have to sell. So I think there's a market for all of these layer twos to bring their best, and the strongest will survive. So that's what I'll add to that.
Lex, what do you think about this? Because you're in a situation where you're waiting for smart contracts to give you the opportunity to have a better life. What do you think when it comes to this? Are you ready for the first that can deliver, or does it really just need to be as right as possible? Is first better in this situation, or is correctness better?
Thank you for the question. Great question, by the way. I have some thoughts on it. Firstly, I'd like Casplex to address the trust model issue that Chai keeps bringing up. You can hate on him, you can bitch on him, you can do whatever you want, and you can curse on him. But he's got a valid point. He's like the, what do you say? Forgot his name. He's like the Dionysus. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Greek guy, Dionysus, who made fun of Alexander the Great. It's a great story.
Yes.
Yeah, immortal. Yeah. So Shai is like that. They have not addressed it. They have only personally attacked him. And this is not to make Casplex look bad or what. And I agree with you. They have done a lot for Kaspa. They had a bumpy road launching KRC20. But I took pride and shared that information and said, like, hey, Kaspa has done 18, 19 million transactions in a single day. And that's because of KRC20. But they have to address the trust model issue. On the other hand, you don't see Shai questioning IGRA. It's not that he won't. He will. He will do it right away. And I agree with you that they have taken it step by step. And in addition to that, IGRA is waiting for ZK proofs, right? So essentially, you can trust the information without knowing the exact information, but that's the correct information. And that only can be done when the core team or the core devs implement the ZK opcode. That'll take some time, not years, but in the next months, of course.
Yeah.
So it has to be perfect because Kaspa is pure. Kaspa should remain pure, and we don't want people to come and F it up. So as much as I am in a situation where I can make use of this, but I don't want my Kaspa to go lost or get hacked. That will literally make me suicidal, for a lack of better word. So the important thing is, on the Casplex end, they need to address the trust model. On the other hand, IGRA is just waiting for the ZK opcodes. So that's where the credibility and the trust, more trust, in my opinion, comes from IGRA.
Yeah.
Without all else equal, credit to the Casplex team. But, I will see. It's a waiting game. That's my thought on it. But, look at Ethereum. They have 50, 60 lending platforms, our way, and so on and so on and so on. I think this is just the beginning. In a year or two, by the time we have the next cycle, Kaspa by itself will have about 50 lending platforms or DeFi platforms. So right now we are debating whether, who's better, because these guys are pioneers. But going forward, things will get better. That's my opinion. So in short, it has to be perfect, because that was Jonathan's vision. There's no trade-offs. Kaspa's pure. It has to be perfect. And that should apply to the DeFi platforms themselves.
Yes. If I could add on to that, Flux, and thank you for sharing that. I am familiar with what Shai said, and I think a lot of us here have read it. He has been very vocal in his criticism of Casplex and others, but specifically just looking at what he was saying about Casplex's approach to smart contracts. His concern is that they were being really opaque. They weren't being transparent about it. And when he asked them about the trust model, he got no response. And he really wanted to look into it. He wanted to dive into it and make sure that it was secure. And he got no response. And I think that's a fair criticism. And he was concerned that Casplex was prioritizing their short-term business interests over the long-term Caspa sustainability because they were in such a rush to get it out first, get it out according to the timeline. Whereas Igra Labs, they didn't have a timeline at that time. I mean, now they've talked about April as being a timeline, and we've seen their Caravel already open to testing currently. So there is that happening, but you're right. Shai had serious concerns about the long-term damage that this could cause, basically. I think he had used the words damage. It could damage Caspa in the long run. I think that's what he said, his exact words, actually. And I think it's a fair concern. I don't know as much as he does on the technical details. So if there was a trust model, I wouldn't know how to personally verify that myself. But I have read his writing and he is brilliant. And if he says something is flawed, I'm more likely to believe it just based on the fact that he knows his stuff. And I think it's fair that if we're going to have smart contracts, it be right. And even though a lot of us were a bit bummed out that we didn't get to have smart contracts yesterday from Casplex, I at least applaud that they pulled back and said, let's look at this a little bit longer before we put it out because we do want it to be perfect. We don't want it to be messed up. We don't want people to get hacked. We don't want people to lose their money. There's too much at stake. And we need Caspa to be looked at, like you said, as a pure currency. And Caspa's immaculate. So if we're looking at a third party coming in and building something, we want it to also be immaculate because by association, people are going to equate them together and it better be good. Otherwise, people are going to blame Caspa when it's not Caspa's fault if something does go wrong. So I'm glad they pulled back to really think about it. But like you said, I'm definitely more looking I'm banking on, I guess is the better word. I'm banking on Igra Labs in the long run because Shai does. And I put a lot of my weight into what he says on technical issues. Yeah, that's how I feel about that as well.
That was awesome. Thank you very much for all three of you.
So I believe we have room for one more speaker. I think we're allowed to have up to 6. So if there is anybody else that would like to speak, go ahead and make a request and we'll bring you up. I'm not seeing any new requesters. Are you, Juan? Do you see any?
I do not. No.
Is there anyone that would like to share anything else?
I really like to hear Shalom on Kaspa speak. Been following his content, and maybe he or she doesn't know, but I really like all the stuff that he's sharing over time. But no obligations, of course. And Cara, you can remove me from speaking. That gives space to anyone else. Really glad to allow me to speak today. Appreciate you guys very much. Very, very
Thank you,
much.
Flux.
Welcome.
Shalom, would you like to come up and speak? Flux is a big fan.
I'm a big fan too. We went back and forth on. I know he's a yogi, and we talked about doing headstands. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
wow.
no obligation at all to come up.
I wish I could do a handstand. I can only do them in the water. I can do backflips and all of that in the water, but on ground, forget about it.
It took a long time to get here, Cara. A long time, trust me. But yeah, very cathartic and great practice. It's one of the things I do every single day. I've done it every day for like 3 months, and it's my happy place, no doubt. You know that I'm practicing yoga, so
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's been great. Yeah, to have those habits in there, you know?
What's your favorite yoga position?
That one. It literally is
The
the
handstand.
handstand. Yep. That is one of my favorite ones. And it's pretty cool how it happens, right? Because if you're, for me, not never seeing myself being someone that was ever going to do yoga. I've lifted weights for most of my life, but specifically over the past like 5 or 6 years. And then the day that it happened, it was like my body was telling me it was ready, and it just happened. And now it's a great place to be. But it took a while. It took a lot. It took some discipline. It took a lot of practice, no doubt.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I like doing the extended puppy and
The
the cat
extent.
cow.
Okay. Okay. Which one's it? What's the extended puppy? I haven't heard that one.
It's okay. So the arms are extended downwards, the knees are on the ground, the butt's in the air, and the back is arched down,
Oh,
and your
okay,
face
okay,
is touching the ground.
yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
hmm
I've
I
never
like
heard it come.
this. I love the stretch that it gives my back, and then I go from that position into cat cow, and it makes my back arch upwards instead of downwards. So I like going up to down with my back. I just love how that feels.
Yeah, it's a beautiful practice, man, for sure. Brings peace in the chaos because it's not easy. A lot of peace in the chaos at
Yeah.
times. I do find myself when things come up, you know, because I stress my body. It's again, I'm probably practicing like 4 or 5 times a week in a group setting, but throughout the day, I'm always doing things here and there. And yeah, it's just when things come up, it's just really easy to deal with them. So
I like that. I like your approach to that. It just seems that it's so integrated with you that it emanates in everything that you do.
yeah, you gotta have that. You gotta have that layer one strong.
Yeah, it's gotta
That
have that no
foundation.
third party.
Like we've talked about this. That foundation needs to be as perfect. It's not perfect. We're human, but you gotta let that thing be strong. It's got to hold everything. So taking care of myself has been the most important thing. Putting myself and my health and all that first
Yeah.
is a big part of the reason why a lot has come into my life the way it has. So Caspa is a reflection of that with
Mhm.
its amazing layer one, with its groundbreaking layer one.
This has been a year where I have prioritized my health above everything. I've had 4 brain surgeries this year so that I could have treatment for all the PTSD that I had. And I'm
Really?
feeling oh, yeah, I'm feeling so much better, but I do have some side effects from the surgeries. So when I stand up, I'm still getting a little dizzy, and I have hiccups randomly throughout the day. I'm hoping that will pass, but I do feel so much better, and then, of course, getting diagnosed with lipedema and Derkham's disease, and now knowing how to get my treatment for it, and getting lymphatic drainage massages every week, going to the chiropractor regularly, wearing compression garments because it helps reduce inflammation, really checking into the supplements that I take, like quercetin and bromelain and butcher's brew, stuff like that, so that I can really be aware of what I'm putting in to help fight inflammation. And, I'm now taking some medicine to help regulate my hormones and stress levels to prevent further damage. And so overall, I just feel so much better in the last year and a half than I ever have in my life. I mean, my whole life has been filled with abuse. And so it was really important to me in the last year and a half after finally getting my sovereignty to focus on health and getting my mind back to me and figuring out who I am after my identity was stolen and really getting back to who I am, who I want to be, knowing what my principles are, what my morals are, what I really feel ethically with everything. And when I say working on my mind and body, I really do mean that. My health, going to college, I got my degree this year. I got a 4.0, graduated with honors, won a scholarship, won a very prestigious award where I gave a speech to a huge crowd. This has been the year for me where I just said, I am going to focus on my health. I'm going to focus on my mind. I'm going to focus on my brain. I'm going to focus on me. And I have, and I love the direction that I'm headed in and where it's going. And it's only going to get better. But I feel you with that, because I've really, really had to take my own life by the reins and say, okay, no one owns me. I'm me. I have this. This is who I am. And I have had to come face to face with dilemmas that I've never been faced with before to go, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this because this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. And I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so inspired by your story. I love hearing it. I love hearing where you're at. It's such a beautiful thing to connect with you and to be able to have these conversations. And yeah, I'm grateful for you and like where you are. And we're just, like you just said, we're just getting started. It's just the beginning, and we're in a really great spot
I
to
appreciate
continue
you
this.
saying that.
Yeah,
You you
absolutely.
you
I
fill me
mean,
with so much positivity. It is just wonderful
supposed
to
to be
have
on this
you.
planet to have a good time, Cara. Or, like there's a lot of this suffering, and a lot of
I
it comes from this
know.
fiat bullshit, right? So
Yeah. Yeah,
thank whatever you believe in. I'm a very spiritual person, but I'm so grateful for being here, and I want to spread this energy to as many people as possible because there's a lot of people that have lost hope. They don't put themselves first, and it's very difficult to do that. Like Flux shared his story. There's so many people that are living in poverty on parts of the world that don't have the opportunities that we have, and your story isn't just for you. When you're somebody who's overcome odds, it's important to share that because you just never know. There's people on this call that have heard things they haven't heard before. There was somebody who wrote earlier, I never thought about sovereignty. Yeah,
that's a
so
good point.
what's it like? What's that like when you go down that path? What can open up? What's possible? We're supposed to be here to have a great time, and little by little by little,
I
step
think
by step, day
the
by day.
universe wants us to be happy.
It does. It
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
Yeah. We gotta start focusing on the shit that matters, the stuff that lights us up, bringing our gifts to the world. I truly, I wrote on my profile like that I'm an artist. But I really think every single human on this planet is. There's these beautiful gifts that we all have, and it's one of the things living on a sound money standard brings to you. When you're set, and when you're set in knowing, and by the way, it's not like a specific amount. It's not like, oh, I'm a millionaire. Oh, it isn't all that. It's like you have everything that you need. You you work on the things that are important. The relationships in your life are full. There's probably chaos in some of those relationships, but there's respect there and there's understanding. And again, I've mentioned it a couple times, like having peace throughout the chaos. It's really about finding peace and common ground, and then enjoying this as much as we can. You know, I shared on the last call, like our souls are eternal, our souls are forever, and what we are supposed to experience life to its fullest. And some people have had that taken away from them. So that's what this technology brings. It brings people back to themselves, brings them their sovereignty. It brings them opportunity, it brings them hope. That's how I see it. That's beneath the surface.
Can I ask you something beneath the surface of this realm?
Dale.
Okay. You said in our last discussion that you believe in past lives. So my question for you is, did you have financial sovereignty in your last life?
Ooh, that didn't even, that's an interesting question, Cara, because I don't even think that has ever come up.
Try to answer it, Juan.
It is so did I have financial sovereignty in past lives? When I shared that, I mentioned my son, and I'll share this story because I shared on the last call that I do not know who my biological father is. And what that did a couple things for me when I was younger, because in my situation, I shared I divorced my parents when I was 17. I had a really rough relationship with my dad, who I grew up with, who, by the way, I have a very beautiful relationship with now, but it was pretty tough growing up. And what it allowed me to do was kind of romanticize on who my dad was and all that. And growing up in especially the early years when I was working and making money and going through the ups and downs of life, there was this there was this anger towards not knowing who he was, right? That was there. And I remember initially trying to see if I could find out who he was, but eventually I just kind of, hey, whatever. I got busy with life and it didn't become a priority. And then my son was born and I became a dad. And what a gift. What a gift, because that kid was exactly what I needed in my life. He's the complete opposite of me, so grounded, such a good boy. And he was able to bring so much calm and peace to my life, right? So, in one of my Aya ceremonies, I remember sitting there and it was outside where I was looking up in the stars and realizing, like, oh shit, we're this is just one dimension. So the stars, when I looked up, were all connected. And I can tell that we were on Earth, but there was all these other layers of dimensions. And the shaman singing a song, and it's a beautiful melody. And I just started thinking of my son, and then all these flashes of his little face. He has these little chubby cheeks, and he has my eyes, his mom's. And I'm just in this gratitude for having him in my life. And, tears start flowing down my face because the song's very, very beautiful, very powerful. And I remember opening my eyes and looking up to the sun, or I'm sorry, to the sky. It was dark out, the stars were out. And I remember thinking of my son, and I asked, I'm like, hold on, wait, was Julian, was he my dad in a past life? And the stars literally aligned into this face and looked at me and nodded and nodded. And when it did that, I just knew right there and then that he was my dad in a past life. So I remember feeling like being overwhelmed with this peace. And I would question, because I'm a very present dad. I'm there for so much of him. I'm divorced from his mom, and I remember one girlfriend would always be like, "You're so extra with him. You're so extra." And I remember asking that, like, why am I so extra? But that was confirmed to me right there and then. And nobody can tell me anything different, because that's exactly what came to me, right? And I have a so I remember after the ceremony, and I came home and saw him, and I would look I remember looking at him, and he was like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, I'm gonna tell you guys his name. His name's Julian. So I'm like, "Julian, hold up. I'm confused right now. Are you my dad?" And he's like, "No, you're my dad." I'm like, "No, I think you're my dad." He's like, "No, no, you're my." I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? No, you're my dad." So we have that as a little joke now. He doesn't get it yet, but um, it's so hilarious and so beautiful.
And you
So,
taught him financial sovereignty. Do you think he
yeah.
taught it to you?
No, he 100% took care of me in past lives, and that's why he has it now. I've shared that I put my son on and he's a kid that doesn't ask for much. I mean, like, through the holidays, he's such a good kid. And, he's into Roblox and Minecraft. I'm not too versed with any of that stuff, but he's not, I played football and sports. He's really not into sports. He's a big kid, but he's not into sports. I've never pushed him towards that. He loves chess. And He spends his Kaspa on Roblox in Minecraft. That's what he spends his money on. So like little 9.99 purchases, and he's very cognizant about his. He's very aware of his money. I shared on the last call. He has this little snow cone business. So he goes to a school that follows the premise of the hero's journey. So it's not based on grades or anything like that, and it's called the Acton Academy. But it's such a beautiful school, and the kids work on their gifts, and it's just great. So
Um,
yeah. So I think, to answer your question, yeah, I think I was all right. I think I was good to go. But it hadn't come up. I hadn't thought like, oh, was I sovereign? Was I financially set? I hadn't thought about that.
my son's name is Julius.
Oh
He
yeah?
plays football. I played chess. I used to do competitions, and he also buys Roblox. I spend my Caspa to get him Roblox gift card.
That's awesome.
I can't
That's
believe
super
that.
cool.
That's really wild.
That is wild. We have a lot of parallels.
And we're
That's
the
nuts.
same age. I don't know if you know that, but you and I are the same age.
We are? Okay. No, I didn't know that. You've never shared that. So no.
Yeah, I heard you say your age, and I said, well, yeah, that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. Life is good.
I can't say I've ever seen my son be my dad, but I do have an interesting story. When I didn't know I was pregnant yet, I had done some LSD, and I looked in the mirror at myself for a very long time because I would see hallucinations looking at myself, and I thought if I looked at myself long enough, I would see who I am. And I saw a child's face come through my face, and that's how I found out I was pregnant. I stopped doing drugs from that day on, and it was life-changing. I saw a face come inside my face, like, it came through my face. I was high on drugs, but I saw this happen, and I knew there was a child inside me that was not me, and I knew that I needed to change what I was doing, but it was wild. I didn't see him as a father or anything like that, but I definitely realized that my mind could open and I could see things, and even to this day, if I look at someone long enough or look at myself in the mirror long enough, I'll start to hallucinate, and I can see more of a person's soul just by looking at them, and it's because of all the previous LSD I used to do from so long ago, but it's only if I hold really long eye contact. If I keep my eyes open really long without blinking, I'll start hallucinating every time.
Really?
Yeah, I can see right through people. When
We
I
all have
say yeah, when I say that I really get into human behavior, it's really deep. I can read people so so minutely, and part of that is because of all the abuse. I had to walk on eggshells and read people's body language before anything happened. It was a survival technique. So I really learned to read people to know how to survive.
Yeah, I can sense your superpowers that you have. That's a superpower. Like, yeah, you had to do the LSD to kind of access it, but we
Yeah.
all we all have them. We have them. We have these things that we're gifted with, and we've been part of the debasement, and part of us being taken out of our natural habitats and all that has disconnected us from all of these things, and we call these things drugs. They're not fucking drugs.
Yeah, they're mind openers.
Exact. They're expansion and reconnections to ourselves. That's what they are.
Yeah, it's just a change in perception.
Yeah. I go back. I think you had before we started this call, you had asked something about like one of the questions that I think you were going to ask, but just very present to my lineage because that's
Oh,
another.
I remember. I was gonna ask you, as someone from Panama and the US,
Right.
how has your multicultural background influenced your spiritual approach to financial sovereignty and your advocacy for sound money?
Wow. Yeah, that's a loaded question.
I know.
But it absolutely has played a part because I'm gonna go to my 23andMe and share this. But I did a 23andMe DNA test, right? Like this was when I did it to confirm that my dad who I grew up with wasn't my dad. But we knew that the entire time. But what I can tell you is that being as mixed as I am, so I am my lineage mostly is from Portugal, Spain, West Africa, North America, and then Native American and Panamanian. So yeah, I'm from all over, and I mean, what's funny is like where I went to high school too. I was one of a few brown people. I didn't go to high school with a lot of people that looked like me. So that was another trauma that I somewhat had growing up. But to answer your question, I think being as mixed as I am, and partially not knowing my biological dad, and then growing up in the environment I grew up with. Lucy's white, like I'm brown, and Hispanic, and I could speak Spanish. There wasn't anybody I grew up with I could speak Spanish. I spoke Spanish to my mom growing up, English to my dad, but it's allowed me to relate with people all over, from all different walks of life. I remember growing up and like when I was around like my white friends, I could be a certain way and they would be a certain way. So it's allowed me to like be a chameleon within how I operate in the world. And that's played a role in terms of understanding people from where they come from, and being able to relate and not judge and not look at things as right or wrong, but more so where are they coming from? Why are they thinking that way? And I think it's allowed me to see Caspa for what it is, and how it can serve.
That's
Uh,
beautiful.
yeah, how it can serve the world. So yeah, I think I was built for this part of my life. Like everything's prepared me for all of this. You know.
Yeah. My dad spent 15 years working on our genealogy and traced our family tree really far back. And then I went on ancestry.com and then inputted all his information and then went further than where he left off. And I've also done the DNA test, and my lineage, it's almost exclusively from Europe. It's mostly Sicily, but it's because my family came from Catalonia, which is northern Spain, where they had to split and move to Sicily. But that's on my dad's side. And then on my mother's side, it's England, Ireland, the Vikings, royalty. Actually, it was concubines of royalty and a lot of that. So it's a mixture of a lot of England and Ireland on one side and a lot of Italy and Catalonia on the other side, for me anyway. And the family tree, I've been able to trace it back to, I think, 800 AD. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm still working on it. I have a lot more clues that I need to work through, but I am hoping to keep going with it because I still keep getting contacts on Ancestry from people to push things further. And another thing that I'm trying to do to figure out when my ancestors left Catalonia for Sicily is I paid some money. I basically bribed some priests in Sicily. They're,
Really? Wow.
yeah. So I have access to their Italian handwritten records online and I have a login to read things that you have to have a special login to look at. And I paid a fee to get it, and it's written exclusively in Italian. And I am trying to find the next clue, but I have to read a lot of Italian handwritten words from the 1600s, and it's not exactly the easiest job
No,
in
that
the
doesn't.
world.
It sounds very difficult to do. Wow.
Yeah,
That's insane.
it is. But I want to know what drove the family from Catalonia to Sicily because I know it had something to do with the bourgeoisie, which leads back to financial sovereignty. Because during that time that I suspect that the family left was because the working class people were being controlled by the bourgeoisie and wanted to have more workers' rights, and their money wasn't being given to them, so they felt they had to leave and ended up going to Sicily. And from Sicily, they came to America. My grandfather, when he left, not my grandfather, my great grandfather, when he left Sicily for America, he came to New York. He didn't know how to read or write. He was just a railroad worker, and he used his extra money to gamble on horse races. He didn't know how to read or write. Education was not part of his life at all. But on my grandmother's side, it was the complete opposite. My grandmother, my great great grandmother was actually one of the first women to go to college in America in
Mhm.
Ohio, and she was a valedictorian during a time when women couldn't go to school, and she was only allowed because her husband was in the military and he demanded it, and we got very lucky, and so she was extremely intelligent, and I think I got a lot of that from her, but on my great grandfather's side, they didn't have any of the reading and writing, and so when he got married to my great grandmother, there was a mix in learning how to be educated, and they ended up teaching their children how to handle money, how to have a food business, how to do entrepreneurship. And my dad is now a writer. He's written 30 books. I published them for him. And I'm an editor. I read Harvard stuff. And
Oh,
never would they have imagined if my great grandfather could see me today, he'd be shocked, right? This is a man that came over on a wooden boat and barely survived to get here and didn't know how to read or write. And here's his great granddaughter doing editing work at the highest levels of education.
it's but that's all it's he was the one that started it all though.
Yeah, I give him all the
That leap.
credit. Him and my great grandmother. Yeah.
In my case, I mean, I was my dad was in the military, but my family that on my mom's side from Panama, but my grandmother, like my grandma had 5 children with 5 different men, never got married, and my mom was the first daughter on well, my mom was her first daughter. She had 2 younger sisters, and they would teach so when the military men were down there that, one of the things was like, "Oh, go find somebody from the military to bring you to the US." So my mom had her boyfriends down there and likely got, pregnant with me very young. My mom was like 20, 21,
Wow.
and she got pregnant. And then my grandmother was like, "You better go find one of those soldiers to take care of I'm the first grandchild of 11. There's 11 of us."
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. But my mom got pregnant. My mom actually knew that I wasn't his kid, but he was the one that could give her a better life. So my mom lived with that, because I was one of those kids with a lot of intuition when I was younger, and plus I don't look like I have 2 younger brothers that are my half brothers, but I remember being like 6, 7 years old and being like, that's not my dad. Like, who's my real dad?" And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And then she finally told me when I was 13. But that obviously created a lot of trauma, a lot of back and forth with him, and, created rough times when we were younger.
And a lot of confusion, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I would question all of that obviously when I was younger, but looking at how things have turned out, and what's really cool about this story too is even though I divorced my parents when I was 17, at my college graduation, I shared I'd sold Cutco knives. I was one of the best reps in the country. I did that for a couple of years in college. But I made pretty good money when I was in college. I would go home in the summers and sell a crap ton of knives, and I was good to go. And for my college graduation, I flew family members in, and I hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, 5 6 years.
Spoken to
Um,
who?
to my dad, who I grew up with,
Okay, okay.
and he was separated from my mom. for 5 or 6 years, and then my mom had been talking to him. She's like, he wants to talk to you, and I was like, okay, cool. Is that I've been through, you know, been through it with my foster mom, and came to a place where I forgave him. I didn't hold on to that anchor. I didn't hold on to the anger either. I let that go and I forgave him without him being around. And we had a heart to heart, and he asked he asked for my forgiveness, and I was like, yeah, I forgave you
Aw,
5 years ago. Like
that's
you're
beautiful.
good. And then he was so scared to talk to me though. But so this was at my college graduation was the first time I saw him after he'd left when I was like 16, 17. And my mom suffers from schizophrenia. My mom's been schizophrenic since I was like 6 years old. And she's
Mm,
been disabled, not able to work. So she's always needed help. And he was like, I want to take care of your mother again. And I'm like, that's not gonna be easy, but all right. I gave him my blessing. And they actually got back together at my college graduation. And they've been together off and on since because they're both crazy. But my parents who I grew up with got back together.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
No, most people don't. But yeah, there's a happy ending. I mean,
So you
she tried
divorced
to run
your
away a couple times. Trust me.
yeah.
He's a lot to deal with, and it was rough the first like 10 years with him going back and forth. But honestly, going down my Bitcoin journey the past couple years and Kaspa, and my parents save in Kaspa and Bitcoin too. But when I shared with them what I saw going down this path, and then I'm the first in my family to do a lot of things. So like my family really respects me.
Wow.
And there isn't much convincing that I need to do. I just, kind of like I'm the rock in the family, and I put my family on, not by force at all, but my family's on the sound money standard, and it's definitely helped everybody. It's helped everyone, you know.
Yeah.
My dad has struggled his entire life trying to save, and 20 years in the military, has a pension, and it was a struggle every single month. Every single month there was going through something. And I'm like, "Hey," we had the conversation earlier this year, and he's like, "Help me out, man. I can't do it. I can't figure this out." And it's been great. It's been great. So, yeah.
Is he doing better now that
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got Kaspa?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The fact that I'm able to save his energy in this protocol, it's a massive difference. And the way I have him
Good.
set up, he's been a very good student. This is a 68-year-old man, military, used to be mean as hell. He's really great with my son. The dude was very mean growing up, but yeah, he's lightened up. It's like you can't carry all that shit forever. But it's allowed him to just be freed up because I manage everything for him. I manage my family's assets. That's the way I look at it. That's what I do. So yeah, I take care of my family, manage all that. So it's been beautiful. It's brought us all together.
That's amazing that you manage their assets and you do right by them. I had someone managing my assets and made me lose everything.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be careful who you do that with.
Dude,
You
I
gotta
was
know.
married to him. I thought I could trust him. I was
Of course.
married to him.
No,
I,
that's just unfortunate. I mean, that's crappy that had to be a part of your story, Kara. But
yeah,
that's some shit right
I'm so old fashioned. I come from the belief that you're supposed to trust your husband, submit to your husband, and boy, was that crazy. I don't know what
there.
I
That
was
is rare.
thinking. It's
There's not a lot of that out there.
I'm so old school, and it messed me up. And, I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, I don't know. But it's interesting. You divorced your parents at 17. I ran away from home at 17. I just
Yeah, that's why
I
you mentioned that. That's
I couldn't
insane.
take it. I couldn't take it anymore. And I ended up going to the arms of somebody who turned out to be really, 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 really bad. And and then I was able to leave him at one point and then become very rich on my own. And then I got married a second time to someone who destroyed my life. And after 2 marriages where I felt it was just the worst you could imagine, and coming from a life of abuse, you can imagine. And you know what they say, that if you grow up abused, you tend to continue finding people in your life and going down that path. So for me, I've always just kind of, in the last few years, just looked at this like maybe I just can't pick up, maybe I just need to just not. Like maybe my picker is off. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned a few things earlier where like you're working more on yourself, and
That's been
it's
my
been a, it's
focus.
been a, yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of time. I mean, I can relate to it. I'm divorced, and there's so much that we try to force on other people, but the common denominator in all these relationships is you.
As ourselves. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So, if you're not taking care of yourself, and almost depending on the other person, and all that, we live in a different world. It's not. I think it's cool to have like traditional old school values, but we do live in a different world.
Oh yeah. I don't
And
have those values anymore. I don't even know. At this point, I'm redefining every little bit of myself, every value, every moral, every principle. I'm reflecting on everything from scratch. It's just been a complete redo, and part of that's because of the brain surgeries. It's really helped me have a clean start.
yeah, well, that's great. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Again, you got to take care of the foundation. The
Mhm.
foundation, heal that, and then
And
I'm a big believer that you let things vibe in. You don't force anything, and that's kind of the energy that we're moving towards in the world. You
yeah.
know.
And I've
Yeah.
also had to kind of come face to face with accepting my own responsibility in all of this, and realizing choices that I made and things that I obviously would do differently today. But yeah, a lot of that has just been really reflective. And I would say that this year and last year, but specifically this year, that's just been my main thing every single day is looking at that. Let me give you an example of a moral dilemma I was faced with this week that made me reflect who I am as a person. I was at work. I work remotely as an editor, and I had been asked where a certain lesson was that I was working on, and I couldn't find it. And so I did some research to find why it wasn't there. And apparently, my boss had marked it as something that didn't need to be done 2 years ago when I started, but she thought it did need to be done. And I said, "Look, I never built it because you had marked it as not needing to be done." I showed her the proof, and she said, "Okay, don't build it. We'll just leave it alone. Let's just not tell the dev team," because she had asked them to try to find it in the database, and they were looking for it, but she wanted to save face and not find it. And she didn't want them to know it was missing because she didn't want it to come down on it being her fault. And I love my boss to pieces. I would not want to put her in that position anyway.
Mhm.
And at work, people were asking where this was, and it wasn't just the dev team. There were now other teams looking for this lesson that I knew did not exist, but my boss told me, "Don't tell people it doesn't exist." And I felt myself going, I don't want to lie. I don't want to start lying, and I don't think that's who I want to be. Even so, I was in a dilemma. Do I disobey a direct order from my boss and make the lesson anyway? Or do I tell a lie to help her save face? And so what I ended up thinking about, and I was thinking about this for about an hour and a half, just going back and forth on who I am and what do I do. And I finally decided that what I would do is I would make a template for the lesson. So I'm not making the lesson, I'm making a template for the lesson. And I would make everything except the lesson and have it almost complete so that I am not defying her orders of not making the lesson, but making something that would allow the lesson to be built with ease. And then I came in with the attitude of, I'm rebuilding something. Don't ask me how this got here. It's here. And that way, I wasn't being asked to tell a lie, and I was helping her save face, and I was also giving the dev team the ability to find it and I was giving other people the ability to say, here it is. And then we could see it was a skeleton lesson that needs to be finished. And that was the way that I decided I wanted to go through life. That was me learning who I was, that I'm not going to be someone that's going to lie, even if it's to protect someone like that, when I can find another alternative that's a win win for everybody.
Love it. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. Yeah.
That's me just working on my health, working on my mental
That
state,
is.
working
Yeah.
on who I am. Like, who am I? And that when I did that, I knew who I was. I'm not going to be someone that's going to intentionally lie. It's one thing to lie because we're all subconscious liars on some level, but it's another thing to intentionally lie and stay with it, and it just becomes a web of lies after a while. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, you end up forking. You end up forking
I
into
can't do
this
that. That's
bad.
not me. That's not who I want to be. So, yeah, I ended up doing something that made everybody happy, and I still want to finish the lesson, but now that it's a template, everyone's happy because it's less work when it does need to be made.
Exactly. No, that's beautiful. You found the truth and aligned with it and went down that path.
I
Yeah,
needed
that's
that.
so great. Yeah. Yeah. It's just even though it was probably a pain in the ass to do that, that was the right path for you to follow, you
Yeah,
know?
it took 3 hours to
Yeah.
do
It was a pain in
it,
the ass. It wasn't
and I
easy.
needed
Yeah.
to. I was like, "I'd rather spend 3 hours working on this to start this than tell a lie over and over and over." I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
do
Because
that.
then you got to remember the lie. Yeah. It's
Oh,
way easier to go and do the work.
yeah,
Proof of
and I
work.
yeah,
Look
proof
at
of
you
work,
proofing proof of work.
proof of work.
There's so
Exactly.
much to that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And the ledger was there because there were timestamps. So it was very clear. And I couldn't lie by saying, oh, I found it. I had it all along because the timestamps were there. So I had to be very clear what I was doing. I'm making this. So yeah, had to be very honest the whole time.
Yes. That's beautiful. It's the way to be.
Thank you for letting me share that. It is now 8 o'clock. We've reached a 3 hour mark. I think this might be a good time to wind it down. How do you feel
Yes.
about that one?
Yes. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed it. Thanks for hosting it and having me on as a co-host. We should continue this. These are fun. Get down to the nitty-gritty beneath the surface because it's all interconnected, Cara. It's all interconnected.
I like connecting with you. I feel
Yeah.
so much better when I connect with you. I really do. I feel just good in my spirit.
It's the medicine. I
It
shared with you on the
is.
last one. It's I've had shaman tell me I am the medicine. So no, but so are you, by the way. I feel very aligned, and it's awesome to get to know you here a little bit better and be able to share some things and find out all the parallels that we have.
Mhm.
So I'm sure others on the call, and I want to thank all you guys that chimed in, and whether you stayed on for a little bit or the entire time or hopped in and
Yeah.
out. We appreciate whatever time you spent on here, and to the speakers, George for coming up and asking questions, Flux for sharing your story, man, brother. I'm so happy that you're participating in these spaces and you're back, man. And thank you for sharing your story. It was very moving and I think brought a lot of light, some of the things that a lot of us take for granted. So we need to keep hearing stories like that, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the real stuff that's actually happening out there, you know?
And it affects
So
so many people. Thank you so much, Flux, for bringing that up and for sharing your story. And I also want to just also thank the people who are not here right now who are going to be replaying this later. There's
yeah,
actually more of you than there are those that are here now. And I know that a lot of you are listening, and I hope this has touched you in some way and that you feel that you belong, that you matter, that you count, and that no one loves you more than you love yourself. So give yourself a big hug.
absolutely.
Thank you all for being here, and we'll definitely do this again really, really soon. Thank you all, and especially thank you, Juan. You are
Thank,
awesome.
thank you, Carly. You're awesome. I'm
Thanks for the
awesome.
dance.
Yes, that was fun dancing with you in this conversation. We'll do it again real soon.
For sure. Have a good
Yeah.
night, everybody.
Good night.